Thank you. Everybody hear me okay? Our Zoom members, can you hear me okay? Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, your attention this evening. I am back to move us through the next phase of the financial sustainability strategy development process for the Park and Recreation Department of the City of Forest Grove. So appreciate your time tonight. This is going to be a bit of a different type of work session in that I'm going to do a bit of a review for all of you, and the majority of our time together this evening is going to be by way of activity. So hopefully you will enjoy, eat up now while you can. I'm having a little issue with my remote here. I've got an issue with my remote. Thank you. So real quickly, this is going to be our agenda for the next hour or so together. I'm going to be doing a bit of a review of the strategy development process. Basically, some of the same information I shared with you last time I was here in front of you. And then we're going to spend most of our time tonight on what we refer to as a beneficiary of service exercise. And I'll give you some context, some instruction and direction relative to how that works and what it's going to look like and feel like for all of you. And then I'll open the floor for any final thoughts, questions, comments that you have, and share with you what next steps in the process are like. We are going to be very careful of time because once I'm finished here, I am going over to the school district, and we're going to be doing a community work session similar to what you're going through tonight. So with that, again, going to start with a review of the process. You may recall, if you were here with me last, that this entire process is rooted in how we best use our finite resources. I will tell you, back in the 80s, late 80s, when I got in the field, we talked a lot about limited resources. And today, in the public sector, particularly in the world of public parks and recreation, we speak about finite resources. There's only so much staff time, there's only so much space, and there's only so much money. And the question for all of us is, how do we essentially best invest it? How do we spend it in such a way to have the greatest impact on our community as a whole? It's really a charge for us. It's a pretty heavy responsibility. And it's also a reminder that we are the stewards of taxpayer resources. And every day we spend and invest other people's money. And it's quite the privilege and, again, quite the responsibility. And another bit of a reminder, if you will, I'm not going to go through all of the data that I went through with you last time, but we are in the final stages of the cost of service analysis. This is a big part of this process, and it essentially allows us an opportunity to work alongside Ann and her team, collecting revenues and expenditures and determining what the cost of park and recreation service provision is to the community. You can see up here real quickly what the total revenues are or have been over this 5-year or 6-year window rather, and then what the total expenditures were. And the cost recovery for park and recreation services is 36%. We're anticipating when we do the reveal of the final data that we're going to be in that 30%, 36% category. So essentially, if you think about it in these terms, it really clarifies it. And that is, for every dollar you expend, you're collecting 36 cents in revenues by way of fees and charges and alternative revenue streams, and you're using 64 cents in taxpayer subsidy to support the park and recreation system. This is about the sustainability of the organization, right? It's real easy to think about the immediate and the short term. What we're really trying to do is help the City of Forest Grove Park and Recreation Department live a long, healthy life, a long, fiscally well life. So that said, you may recall this as well. I asked all of you, I asked the staff this, are we smart about managing money? And clearly we're talking about other people's resources, right? Taxpayer investments. And it becomes a foundational question. It's rhetorical, but a foundation question, I think, for all of us in the public sector. Are we really intelligent, thoughtful, and I think responsible in terms of how we spend these dollars that we've been privileged to be the stewards of? I'd like to spend just a few minutes revisiting the process so it's back top of mind and front and center in terms of what we've been doing, how we do it, and the methodology that is being used to create this strategy. We use this thing called the three-legged stool. The intention is, by way of building these 3 legs, we're going to help organizations determine what their tax use and revenue enhancement philosophy is, aka a financial sustainability strategy. So by creating service categories, by going through a beneficiary of service exercise, and by looking at cost of doing business, we're able to intelligently and thoughtfully create a strategy that makes sense for our organization. I'm going to go through each of these legs again, one at a time. Hopefully this is just a bit of a refresh, although I'm sure you've been thinking about nothing else since I was here last in this particular strategy, so many of you could probably walk everyone else through this. I'm trying to be fun, given it's 5:30 at night and you're all eating, so. All right, so real quickly, the delineation between a park and recreation service, a service area, and what I'm referring to as service categories, I think is best explained by way of these three slides. A service, a park and recreation service, is essentially a leisure experience provided by this organization, by Forest Grove Parks and Recreation. So think about the different activities and courses and classes and events and rentals. Any experience that's designed and delivered by this organization would qualify as a service. Okay? If we look at service areas, it's a little bit different in that service areas are how we typically in Parks and Recreation structure our organizations. And we do that by likeness of service. On the right, you see three different services, if you will, provided by an organization, and these are all aquatic services. In the top right, that's an Intro to Aquasize class. In the middle is a Learn to Swim program, and on the bottom right is an aquatic facility. These are all part of an aquatic service area. You have a very robust aquatic system here as part of your department. So likeness of service becomes the qualifier, if you will, in terms of how we bucket. Finally, categories, which is a really important part of designing a philosophy, a sustainability strategy, is where we now bucket services based upon likeness of purpose. And so on the right, you see three different types of services for three different types of populations and interests, and they're all in different service areas, right? In the top right, we have that Intro to Aquasize program. Let's say that's for older adults, and it's in our aquatic service area. In the middle, let's say that's an Adam-level flag football program for youngsters. That would be in sports. The service is flag football, but the service category itself is a little bit different. And on the bottom right, we have an Intro to Pottery class. The similarities, the purpose of all three of those services, while they serve a different interest area, is all introductory, right? It's helping people learn a new skill, be introduced to a new activity. So like purpose would be beginner level activity, regardless of if it's pottery, it's sports, or it's aquatics. So I think the thing that's important for all of you to, I think, recognize and embrace is there's some incredibly strong value associated and utility associated with service categorization. Number one, it really helps us when we get into the throes and the detail of creating a strategy. It helps us eliminate arbitrary decision making, and I'll clarify that here in a moment. Alternatively, it discourages attempts to make decisions based upon social values, interests, or special interests. So I'm a softball player, I love softball and I love baseball, but if I bring that to the table relative to cost recovery, it can sometimes get in the way. And finally, aligning interests with equity-based decision-making is really important. We are an equity-based profession. One of our pillars is social equity. And by thinking about our categorization and our bundling of services based on purpose, it really helps us diminish decision-making around, age or interest area, whatever it might be. It all becomes about purpose. So to do a quick refresh of the example I shared with you last time, if you look on the screen, you see three different kinds of services, albeit these are all recreation-based. This is still a park and recreation activity. But just to give you an idea of how this works and why categories are important, in the bottom left, we see a service being Intro to Fitness in the service area aquatics. In the middle, we see a T-ball program represented by the service area of youth sports. And in the bottom right, we see a youngster in our Learn to Swim program being the service in the service area of aquatics. Historically, traditionally, for the last 3 decades in our field, we have made somewhat arbitrary decisions around what we think cost recovery should be by way of the population served or the special interest. And it's become a bit problematic for us across the United States. And so we see that we would make some decisions in this hypothetical based upon, again, our assumptions around what these cost recovery goals should be based upon these services in these service areas. The alternative approach is that we start to see these services differently. And while one serves older adults and one serves sports and one serves aquatics, the reality is they all exist because we're trying to introduce people to a new skill, regardless of age, regardless of interest area. So in this hypothetical, we would see this as a beginner level activity category, and we would see all different kinds of services from different service areas being represented. Ultimately, what we will find is every category and all these kinds of services that are in these different categories based on purpose will have the same goal. As we move through this exercise or this understanding of categories, I also shared with you an alternative example around rentals. And so on the left, we could assume in this hypothetical, we have a birthday party rental in a shelter. On the right, we have a rental of a sports field. We have, again, historically, traditionally thought about these differently. If we think about them in terms of purpose, their access, if you will, use of a public space, and when it's used by a particular group or individual, the public does not have access to these facilities. So rentals become individual or group use, exclusive use of a public space, inhibiting others from using that particular field, that particular park, that particular amenity. So these are two high-level examples of what categories are and how they work. You have two handouts in front of you this evening. One is a list of the categories that have been created by the department. Like any good teacher, I'm going to say, okay, this is your resource, but please do not read that yet. Please pay attention to the presentation. I'm going to bring you back to center in a few minutes, and we're going to walk through that together. We'll make sure that we all have a common and clear understanding of the categories before we actually do the exercise. What is important to note is these categories were created by your professional staff members. They're the content matter experts, boots on the ground. These are the folks that deliver the services every day. They created these categories to represent the service menu of Forest Grove Parks and Recreation. You'll see categories along with definitions and examples. Okay? And again, we'll go through these together here in a few minutes. Next, we have the beneficiary of service leg, and that is principally why we're gathered here this evening. I'm going to be asking you to go through an exercise and an activity we refer to very simply as beneficiary of service. Allow me to give a little bit more context around this. In our kind of hypothetical, traditional, conventional approach, we would again set goals based upon service area. In this example, we have aquatics up there, and we might say, well, our aquatic services should be at 40%. But what we find is we dive into any service area, we understand there are a variety of different kinds of services in that service area. The example on the screen is representative of two very common aquatic services that would exist in an aquatics area. On the left, again, we have a Learn to Swim program. On the right, we have a master swim team. If we were to determine a goal based upon service area, we understand there's a little bit of a rub here. Because if we think about beneficiary of service, and we think about access, and we think about common good versus exclusive benefit, we begin to understand this becomes a little bit more challenging. Because we might say in our hypothetical that a Learn to Swim program is going to appeal to a larger audience. It's got greater access, in contrast to a service that we might see as being a little bit more exclusive, where you have to have a mastery of skill in order to participate. I often use myself as an example. I'm not a swimmer, but I could take a Learn to Swim program. Right? So we want to think about the services that live within our areas and understand the importance of beneficiary of service. We are going to find there are going to be a number of services in the same service areas that may be in different categories. This is to carry that example forward. We may see something like Learn to Swim, even though it's in aquatics, be in a category like beginner level. And we may see Master Swim, again, that's in the same service area of aquatics, but it's going to likely be in a different category, something like competitive or advanced activities. Okay? So the importance of beneficiary of service is critical. Your participation this evening, I cannot overstate the importance of the activity I'm going to be asking you to do. The staff did this afternoon, and the community group I'm meeting with a bit later is going to do the very same activity. What we're doing is trying to hear from different persons who represent different perspectives and different interests and different opinions. So you're going to help build what we refer to as the first iteration of the financial sustainability strategy, this beneficiary of service model. You are going to be ranking. This is not a prioritization exercise. This is a ranking exercise. You're going to be ranking the categories from the category you believe aligns most with common good to the category you believe to be most exclusive, and then everything in between. And again, I'm going to get into the details and the nuance of the exercise here in a few moments. As we continue through the process, the final leg of the stool, and I say that in terms of not a linear approach, I'll say the other leg of the stool is the cost of service. And this is what we have actually been working on since December. We've been working with your team collecting revenues and expenditures to best understand what it costs you to provide every service in the organization, whether it be a swim lesson, whether it be a day camp, whether it be a park shelter rental. And the idea is that we collect all revenues and all expenditures, including indirect costs. This is not just a direct cost exercise. Real quickly, I've kind of summarize this based on our last conversation together. You know, we are among the more challenging, complex parts of local government when you think about cost of service. We provide what some would deem as social services. We provide things that would be seen as enterprise operations and everything in between. And what we're trying to do is account for all of those expenses. And you think about the different costs associated with a swim lesson versus a day camp versus a park shelter rental, they're all very different. So we've got many unique direct costs, and we've got a series of indirect costs. Ann is an indirect cost of the system. Ultimately, Jesse is an indirect cost of the system. And so we're right now focusing on the indirect costs of the Department of Parks and Recreation along with the direct costs to best understand what it costs you to provide services, thus cost of service. So as a result of these three legs and your contributions this evening, we'll be taking, obviously, the philosophical underpinnings of this, building a beneficiary of service model. And once the cost of service reveal is scheduled, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be charging Ann and her team to establish goals based upon current performance. I like to say, you know, I have aspirations to run a marathon, but if I can't haul my hind end around the block, you know, I've got to start somewhere, right? I've got to think about what's a reasonable goal to set in place. And that's what we want to do. We want to use that cost of service, current cost recovery performance, to help us become the baseline and the benchmark from which we begin to set our goals. So we transform the beneficiary of service model into this idea of a financial sustainability strategy. I shared this one example with you last we met as well. I've got two up here for you. This is a park district in the Chicago metro area. It's still a park and rec system, albeit they have an elected board rather than a series of city council persons. You can see their categories. They were ranked with a community group as well as staff, as well as their park board. The progression of the continuum was from common good to individual or exclusive benefit. And then once they understood their cost of doing business, they determined what their goals should be. You'll notice in this one, the goals are based on subsidy investment. It means essentially the same thing. They felt like that resonated more with their community so they could help their community understand how they were spending their taxpayer investment, right? Cost recovery, unfortunately, people think, oh, it's about generating fees and charges. Subsidy is more about how we're going to invest and spend taxpayer resources. And you can also see in the middle there, they chose to be very ambitious. They're subsidizing, they're putting all their subsidies into the 4 categories towards the bottom. And then the expectation is they'll have a 0 subsidy all the way up to generating some excess revenues to reinvest in the system. Alternatively, this is Ashland Parks and Recreation. I believe I shared this one with you last time. I think it's important to share one from your area. This is a municipal system. It's a city system. You can see their series of cost or categories ranked based on their board, commission, and staff contributions. Similarly, they actually have subsidy goals rather than cost recovery goals. We're seeing more of that. It's like a movement right now, getting away from cost recovery goal and actually calling it a subsidy goal. You can see that it's not a one-size-fits-all. We use the methodology and the framework consistently, but the outputs and the outcomes can vary depending on the organization. So this is where we're headed. We're moving towards creating the Forest Grove, Oregon Park and Recreation Department's financial sustainability strategy. Tonight, you are helping contribute to the progression of the categories on the continuum from common good services to exclusive benefit services. So with that, I'm going to pause. That was a quick refresh of the methodology, but want to see if you have any thoughts, comments, questions before we actually get to the exercise tonight. All right. Hearing none, seeing none, let's move on. I hope you have fun with this evening. I hope you have some really robust deliberation and discussion, maybe even a little bit of debate. So this is what we call the beneficiary of service exercise, and we're going to walk through these handouts together. I'm actually going to start with your service categories. So if you'd be kind enough to pull your category sheet out, and while I know that you all are capable of reading this, I find value in us going through it together. If you have any questions as a result about any of the definitions or anything like that, we've got the professional staff in the room who might be able to address the questions, or I certainly may be able to address them as well. We have 11 categories that represent the service menu of the Park and Recreation Department. These are intended to represent all services provided by Parks and Recreation. I'm going to read to you the category, the definition, and the examples, and then see if you have any questions. okay? They are in no other order right now than alphabetical, okay? I am going to share one other little side note here. I have many, we'll say, community groups or councils or commissions, boards ask, how did you arrive at this many categories and so on? The categories can vary. I will tell you the fewest categories I have ever seen that we've ever worked with was on behalf of the City of Austin Park and Rec Department, and they have 16,000 different classes, courses, activities, events, rentals. They had 9 categories. Simply about what categories make the most sense for our system and making sure the categories represent all of the services provided. The most I've ever seen was 15. You're kind of in the middle. You've got 11, okay? All right, so let's start at the top. Page 1, you have beginner level skill-based activities. These are classes, clinics, workshops, leagues, and other led and or instructed activities where the primary goal is to introduce participants to a new activity so they may build new skills. Examples are junior lifeguard class, volleyball camp, yoga, youth pickleball, beginning swim lessons. Again, these are just some examples. Next are your community events. Community events appeal to the broader community, regardless of age, regardless of ability, skill, family composition, etc., and tend to be held on an annual basis. Examples include Oregon Birdman, Border Collie International, Movies in the Park, and Red, White, and Blue Dye event. Next are your drop-in activities. These are self-directed activities which may or may not require registration and or a membership. Drop-in activities include supervision by staff and or volunteers and may or may not require instruction. Examples of drop-in activities include lap swim, public open swim, water aerobics, and shower use. Your fourth category is education and enrichment. These are classes, clinics, workshops, and other led and or supervised activities in which the primary intention is to provide socialization, interaction, and life skills development with a focus on education and or lifelong learning. Examples here include Lego Camp, Home Alone Safety, No School Day, Camp Grove, babysitter training, craft and swim, and CPR first aid classes. Next are equity services. These are services which focus on addressing community inequities, providing improved access to leisure opportunities. Please note, the staff believe these will be new services, so this was included as a category. These currently do not exist, but the expectation is they will exist sometime soon. Future service examples may include mobile recreation. So those of you that may not know what that is, that's an opportunity for the organization to take services into neighborhoods and communities rather than expecting people to come to a location. It's an outreach effort. And the other one on here is adaptive recreation. That is recreation services for persons with disabilities. Next are food, beverage, and merchandise sales. That's the sale of merchandise and food and beverage items. That includes things like your vending items, concession items, and gift certificates. The last category on the first page are intermediate advanced skill-based activities. These are classes, clinics, workshops, leagues, and other led and or instructed activities in which the primary intent is to master a skill, often in a competitive environment. Examples here are swim lessons levels 4 through 6, stroke improvement endurance class, lifeguard certification, and lifeguard instruction. On the reverse, on page 2, we have open access. Open access is access to parks and park amenities where the user self-directs their own activity. Open access does not include supervision or oversight by staff under volunteers. Examples are your parks and your playgrounds. Next are personalized services. These are individualized classes, clinics, workshops, and other led and or instructed activities offered in a private or semi-private setting to meet the unique needs, interests, and or skill sets of individuals or small groups. An example here are private swim lessons. Next are your, yes? Yeah, would you mind? We'll get through the next two and then we'll open the floor. Next are your rentals. Equipment, space, amenities, and or facility reservations for exclusive use by an individual or group inhibiting access by the general public. Examples here are spray park rentals, pool rentals, picnic shelter rentals, pool party room rentals, and athletic field rental. And finally, your special events category is the 11th category. These are events designed for a target market, market niche, or a specific interest. Examples here are Kids Night Out, Extravaganza, and Spray Park Chalk event. Questions? What do you think, Ann, Cody?
Excuse me, this is Counselor Ewing on Zoom. Could you please repeat the question as there's no ability? Thanks.
My question was whether under personalized services or equity services, say we were to offer a CPR class in Spanish, which would that be considered?
Yeah, your CPR class is education and enrichment, but we'll see what Ann.
So just so everyone's aware, the list of examples those are programs that we currently offer. We tried to make kind of broad categories, so we have some room for expansion when we add programs, and as those programs develop, we would decide as a team what service category they best fit within, and that will be based on what are the intended outcomes of the program.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
I also had a question about the equity services. Historically, Forest Grove is an inclusive community, and why I believe equity work is important. I think it's a lens that should be in each category. I feel like, how do we do that? I'm trying to gauge my personal opinion from living with a disability. And knowing how important it is with a family that was not disabled and disabled to be able to do things together. And I think Sherry brought up a good question. When we're looking at swim lessons in Spanish, there's so many things. Every category we need to, as a community, do the equity work. There's pause for me as an educator, as a person with disability, to say this is a separate thing. Historically, Forest Grove is leaps and bounds above any other community in inclusive accessibility in terms of people with disabilities. I believe how I was raised in the Forest Grove School District is why I am now the mayor with a disability, first female, first with a disability. So I'm looking at any other historically underrepresented group and wondering if I'm being othered. And I don't think that was the intention. I need to put that on the record. I'm going to say a little asterisk. I don't know if it's personal or policy.
Good. And I will call out as an add to that inclusion is laced throughout every category. This was specific to services that are designed to reach markets that aren't currently served. So I don't know if Ann and Cody want to add to that. But inclusion, you wanted to make sure that person with a disability or a person who had some challenges relative to access, something like a scholarship would provide folks an opportunity to be able to participate in any one of these services. So I think the staff probably saw this slightly differently.
So I think Mayor's coming from a very good perspective. Equity, having it as its own category gives us the opportunity to subsidize inclusion services that get injected into every aspect here. So it's not like we're saying it's only adaptive programming is in the equity service, and that's being put on a continuum, and those are individual classes that are quote unquote equity. It gives us the opportunity to inject that into every aspect of what we do by providing inclusion services that integrate participants into the existing programs and not creating other new programs. So not just adaptive programming, which is important, but those with other abilities should have the opportunity to inject themselves into existing programs. They just may require additional support, whether it's emotional or physical. The equity service category is, in my perspective, designed to create that opportunity to make that a part of the continuum, so it is a broader spectrum that can be put into all of them. But I definitely get what you're saying, and I hope I'm articulating that correctly.
I guess just from my perspective, I agree with Melinda. And in terms of the lens, I look at it as more of a universal access. as a thread through all the programming that goes on. And so when you think about recreation in the city of Forest Grove, this would be a universal access for all the programs that we provide. So that would be in terms of the school district, we've been doing that for 35 years, and we try not to isolate and target certain programs, but we try to make sure that we're inclusive through our whole system.
Real quick, could the commissioners state their name before their first time speaking, just so I can have it for the minutes?
I'll just add, one of the first departments actually to build an equity services category was Oregon City, principally to call attention to the fact that they wanted to start making a more concentrated effort, I guess, intentional effort to address equity and inequities in the community. So the organization may choose after this evening to say, you know, we're not going to call it an equity services category. That's entirely up to you. Whether or not you want to have an equity services category lives with this organization. This was, again, I think, to Cody's point, an opportunity to call it out and make sure that we weren't missing a mark. And if at some point along the way there's some perspective or perceptions that we don't need to actually have an equity services category, then it can go away. But I will let you know, it's not a neighbor per se, but in your region, Oregon City was the first one to say, we actually want to call this out. We want people to pay attention to this. We want it to be top of mind. We feel like this should be part of our category list. So, other thoughts, comments, questions before we get started? All right. Okay, so here's what I'd like you to do tonight. We're going to do a beneficiary of service exercise. So if you would actually look at your second handout, I'm going to walk you through the exercise, make sure that everyone's working from the same place, see if you have any questions about the ask, and then I'm going to put you to work, and I'm going to actually ask you to work in small groups tonight. So if you look on the front page of the beneficiary of service exercise, it's actually the page that has the green box. I'm just going to paraphrase these first two paragraphs. A financial resource allocation philosophy. So think about it as our financial sustainability strategy, right? How we're going to use taxpayer resources, how we're going to look at revenue generating opportunities. Provides a foundation for differentiating services based on who benefits and who should pay. We do not own this intellectual property. Frankly, nobody does. This is the way economists in the U.S. economy have differentiated goods and services for decades. And it's a great foundation from which we think about beneficiary of service, and we think about this idea of common good versus individualized or exclusive services. Determining the beneficiary of service becomes a primary driver in how a public park and recreation organization like Forest Grove Parks and Recreation can begin to make informed and defensible taxpayer investment decisions. Following this approach, each of the department's service categories have a set of specific characteristics. That's the definition in the examples that help provide a rationale for who should pay, whether it's the taxpayer, the individual, or both, and to what degree. Ultimately, it helps the organization align its investments with beneficiary of service, okay? So I want to point your attention or direct your attention to the two definitions in the belly of this page in that green box. You have common good services and you have exclusive services. Let's look at what we mean by common good services. Common good services contribute to the common or greater good and can be characterized as essential. Essential are must-have services, having community-wide impact. These services intend to influence social issues and needs. Common good services contribute to greater equity, ultimately making everyone in Forest Grove's life better. Alternatively, exclusive services serve specialized interests benefiting the individual more than the common or greater good. These services can be characterized as discretionary or nice-to-haves with less community-wide impact and can include constraints or barriers to access. Typically, similar or like services are provided by others, meaning the nonprofit world, non-governmental sector, private sector, commercial sector, so on. Please note, typically, similar or like services are provided, okay? My ask of you tonight is to rank the 11 categories that we just walked through together from the category that you believe aligns most with the definition of common good services to the category that you believe to be most exclusive. I'm going to share with you a recommended approach that can be helpful, and I'm going to share with you a please do not. The first is the recommended approach. The recommended approach is this. It's a bookend approach, meaning you may want to start with the category you believe aligns most with common good, being the number one, and then go to the one you think is most exclusive, and you work your way into the middle. The middle gets a little interesting, right? Because we bring our philosophical perspectives to the table. So that's the bookend approach. If you're a linear thinker and doer, you'll probably go 1 to 11 or 11 to 1, whatever works for you. On the back, you will notice some additional definitions. This is a subjective exercise that is intended to try to be as objective as possible. So therefore, you're given common good services definition and you're given exclusive services definition. You're also given additional definitions to create clarity about what is access? What are barriers or constraints? What do you mean by need versus want, or discretionary versus essential? These are simply intended to help you in the exercise. At the end of the day, this strategy is yours. It's not mine, it's yours. So this is intended to help this organization be alive and thriving 20, 30 years from now. That's the intent of a strategy. So this is my ask. The final thing is, please do not allow any conversation as part of the exercise tonight to include money. This is not an ask about where you think money should go or what you think should be this much money or what you're currently charging. That has no bearing on this whatsoever. This is a beneficiary of service exercise. We are going to get there through this process. Once we understand cost of doing business and goal setting starts, we will get there with the money, but tonight is simply about, do your services align with common good, or do they align with exclusive and everything in between? Okay? So, quick head count. Ann's not participating, so we have 6, 9, we have 12 of you. I'm going to put you in.
And could you also tell me how we're going to include the Zoom participants?
You're going
like myself.
I believe someone here has a plan for you.
Counselor Ewing, Counselor Gustin, and Aaron, we're going to put you in a breakout room, and you'll be a group, so you can chit-chat with each other.
Okay.
Teacher trick. Thanks.
Will I need, excuse me,
Yes.
you know I'm too phobic. Will I need to have another access number to get into the breakout group? How does that work?
Mariah's working on it.
Thank you, Mariah. I'll wait for further instructions.
All right, so the folks here are going to actually have an opportunity to work in groups of 4. You'll be working in groups of 3. Okay, do I have that right? No, I'm going to put you in 3 groups of 4. Yep, we'll do that. All right, so I'm going to count you off. This is going to be real academic. Yeah, actually, I think we'll do 3. We'll do 3 groups of 4 here. So you're going to count off by 3. We'll make this real tough. Okay, so Meryl, would you kindly? 1. 2, 3. All right, so let's have 1s here. Let's have 2s here. Let's have 3s here. And let's have 4s here. Okay? Once you get settled, please direct your attention back to me just for a quick moment. I've got one more little instruction for you, and then you can be off to the races.
For Zoom attendees, I'm just going to go ahead and mute us and turn the volume on our end down, so you'll just be able to talk, and that way I can share the document on your guys' screen as well.
Okay. Let me know when you guys are ready for input or not input.
Don't worry about putting it back up. That's okay. All right, gang, can I get your attention just for a quick moment before you get started? So typically with boards, councils, commissions, the sweet spot to complete this first ask is
like,
about 10
missing
minutes.
5 of the
So I'm going to give you 10 minutes, but
beneficiaries
please
of
don't
service?
rush. If you need a little bit more time, that's great. I'll just check in at 10 and say, hey, how we doing? Right? If
Yeah,
you need a little bit more
this
time,
is a different
certainly
page,
grant that
so
to you.
we need to
All
see.
right? And the last ask
not
We
is
need to
relevant
see the
one person in each
exercise
group would
page.
please volunteer to be scribe.
Yeah, we need to see the page that was previous
Every
to this,
group
I
would have a
think.
volunteer scribe. That would be great.
Mariah, can you hear
But
us?
here's the thing. Please don't assume every woman in the group wants to be the scribe. Whoever's got really good penmanship is what I'm looking for. So, because I want to be able to read it. All right, question.
I think she's kind of muted us.
So I'd
Let me
like you
give
to
her
deliberate and
a ring.
discuss, how would you rank?
Okay.
1 to 11, 1 being common good, 11 being most exclusive. Ideally, I would love it if you would come to consensus. I want you to imagine your 3 little communities all your own, and I'd like you to try to come up to consensus, okay? Deliberate, discuss.
I just texted you.
Hi, Mariah. I don't know that you could hear us. Oh, you were. Okay, so what we need is not the one that's on the overhead. We need the exercise page.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the one before.
So the one before is just is the list.
Yeah, that's what we need is the
Okay,
list to work from.
Fine. There you
Okay.
go.
Thank you, Mariah.
Yeah, no problem. Text or call if you need anything.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
She says we're good to discuss.
How do you all want to do this? Do we want to like start with the most good and then figure out our most individualized and then fill in the middle?
I'm happy doing what the staffer or consultant suggested, and that's bookends, maybe starting from, you know, what we think is most to least, if that's okay. Are you guys good with that?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, but in different terms.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry about that, Aaron.
You're okay.
So I'll just throw it out here. I think, you know, one of the most important things for us is to provide beginner level, because that provides access. There's more inclusion in it. And I think it is, you know, a good foundation for any Parks or Rec program to provide those services to the community good.
I agree.
I agree. I don't think I would put that as my, how would I say, my most inclusive that reaches the most people. I think to me that would go with community events.
I understand what you're saying. Aaron, I just don't know for the community. That is a good community. Can we maybe keep that for a second tier in our conversation? Like, you know, entry-level services and then community events, because I also have that ranked pretty highly as for the common good. What do we think out of this list is the least common good oriented?
Personalized services would be my item.
I agree. The individualized services, I think, are, and I would want to know too, do they provide those in other formats? Like, are there nonprofits that provide those activities so that we're not the only ones having to shoulder that?
Yeah. And my least, am I going to the opposite end of the spectrum? I'm actually going to change my answer and give that back to open access. Because that's the most accessible item we have. And we have an abundance of really nice parks. That there is, I mean, we have to have so many parks within such a walking distance of so many people. And I think the open access would be my opposite end of the spectrum.
Okay. I can understand that, and I tend to agree with you that that's probably one of our top common good pieces that we provide. What do you think, Donna?
I'd agree with that as well.
Okay.
as far as I didn't catch if we talked. I think Aaron, you mentioned at the other end of the spectrum, personalized services. I had a question about food, beverage, and merchandise sales. Is that like if there was going to be like a vendor market at a park, that sort of thing? Because it talks about
That's-
vending items, concession items, and gift certificates. So that kind of seems a little bit like just the vending items at the swimming pool. So I want to make sure I understand what they mean by that.
I think you're right. I think that that's what they mean by that, but we certainly can get clarification on that. I mean,
Okay.
but yeah, I tend to agree that that isn't mostly for the common good as well.
Right.
Yeah, that feels. I'm with you guys there.
Okay. I'm so glad we're having this conversation because when I looked over the exercises and stuff, I thought I had a different take on it. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation. Going forward, I also kind of put the interim activities down towards the less common good because, again, I felt that those were more individualized. And I think you can probably go to other sources to get some of that individualized help. Can I put that down towards the less common good section?
Yes, I think so.
And which was it again, Elena?
The interim activities, like master
Okay,
class
yeah.
swimming. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are you can, and oftentimes those are stuff you can find elsewhere. Like there's swimming pools everywhere. I think that's a good call.
And I would think the rentals also. I mean, that's for specific use. It's not. It's definitely not for the common good.
Okay.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. I think the only thing with rentals that gives me pause is the idea of all of how do I say, none of our youth sports are actually run by the Parks and Rec department in Forest Grove. They're all run by other sources. So thinking in that regard, it does hit a few more people, and we bring in teams from other towns. However, it does eliminate that amenity from everybody else's use. So I'm going to backtrack too a little bit.
Can I put that more in the kind of mid category? Are you guys?
I think
because our not common good is getting kind of filled a little bit here. So I like to spread.
I put it at 7. I don't know. We can kind of move them around a little.
You numbered yours, Donna. You numbered.
I did.
Yours.
I think 7's a good spot for that. I agree. I think.
Okay. I'll put a 7 by that, and I've.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Oh, I'm so bad at this. Okay, so we had talked a little bit about community events. Where do you guys see that one kind of falling?
I guess to me that's like a 2 or a 3 if we're gonna with the numbering system.
2.
I agree. I agree too. I think is a good place for it. Let's see. What about education and enrichment?
I kind of put that at a 4, a 5 or a 6 even. And I say that because of a lot of what they've listed on here. You know, those are like the Lego camp. I mean, I'm the one who brought the Lego camp to McMinnville, actually.
You did?
Yeah.
What a wonderful activity. I love
Anne
Lego.
stole those guys from me. She stole them from me.
They
I
stole
used to do all the. I did all the rec programming in McMinnville for like 7 years.
Oh, you did? Well,
I did.
welcome, Aaron, to this part of the world of Forest Grove. Thank you for your
Thank you.
service on the committee. So I'm going to go ahead, if you guys don't mind. I've got that as a 6 because we were pretty had a consensus on 7 being the rental.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Food services, should we rank that maybe as well? I see that more like maybe an 11. I don't see it as a big common good indicator.
I thought 10 or 11.
I agree.
Okay.
But I think
put
11
it as
is good.
as a 10, and I put personalized services as 11.
That's
Okay.
actually what
I'm
I
not
have.
sure where we're at now.
We're all over the place.
Okay, so so far, this is what I have, and you guys kind of tell me if I got this right. So I've got open access as 1 for community good, highest, going from 1 to 11 being the lowest, common good. So I've got open access at 1. I've got community events at 2. Beginning classes, what do you guys think? I was thinking maybe a 3 or a 4.
Okay.
Okay.
I think 3 or 4 is a good spot for that. That's where I
Okay.
was thinking.
I've got the individualized or personalized at 11, food service at 10, the interim activities, I don't think we ranked. I've got education enrichment at 6. So we've got interim that we still need to rank.
Is that
see
the
it low.
intermediate and advanced skills?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I
To me,
put
that's
that
an
at
8 or a
8.
9.
What did you say, Donna? I
Okay.
didn't catch you.
I put that at an 8.
Okay. So we've got kind of consensus. Aaron kind of had it at an 8 or a 9.
Mhm.
Okay, what are we missing here? Drop-in services.
I feel like that could be the 9 spot.
Okay. I don't have any disagreement with that.
This is really
What about
hard
you?
to not talk about the dollars and cents of the whole thing because, I mean, I know that's
Right.
where we're going, but it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Drop-in services. Self-directed activities, registration. So that's just when people go there to swim, right?
Right. Right. Swim, sauna, use the whirlpool, specific hours for them to be able to do that. But it still does take a bodyguard. It still does use some resources.
Got it.
I was gonna say it.
And
you
what
gotta
number did you
figure
put that
in-
at?
We put that as let me see, a 9
Okay.
for community common good. Okay, so let's see, drop in education and enrichment. I've got as a 6. Food, beverages, interim. We've gotten taken care of. Open access is the next one. This says user self-directs activity. I don't know what the difference is, I guess, in that and open access, but it is listed differently.
So I have open access as 1. I
I
thought
believe
that's
all
what we
groups
had
are
it.
finished. The Zoom group, are you
Yeah.
all finished?
Oh, I
Yeah,
see it up
okay.
there. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
And where did we have special
individual-
events?
Yeah, we don't
we
have
need-
special events yet.
Oh, we don't.
or the
Okay.
equity inclusion piece.
Right. Those I
Yeah,
think are the 2
that one's a tricky one.
That's such a difficult, and I say that only
Zoom group?
because it's
Zoom group, do you have a list
Oh.
complete?
We're getting there. We've got maybe another minute to
You need
finish it
another
out.
moment? You need
Yes.
another minute? Okay, we'll give
Yeah.
you another
Yep.
minute or 2. Okay.
All right, thank you. So we're back. I'm sorry. Where were we?
we need to do special events and the equity
Okay.
inclusion.
Any thoughts on that? We've got community events pretty high. We don't have anything in the 4
Only the beginner.
category. And we don't have anything in the 9 category.
Well, I would think that
No, we
special
do.
events
Is maybe a
I would think
4.
that well, it's a special event. I don't know. It's for a
Yeah.
target market or market niche. So for
Maybe
specific
like the
interest.
chalk art, or that they are using the water park area. What do you think that is, Erin?
So is it inclusive, or is it just for specialized groups that are
I
invited?
think it's. I mean, man, that's getting into the weeds. I think it is inclusive for anybody who's able, but it's also like, that kids' night out. That's mainly just going to be parents trying to drop their kids off and get out of here. That extravaganza, I assume, is for little guys to go hunt for eggs. Yeah, it is a target. Man, how do I say? It's a target market, but you still
Zoom
are
group,
trying to
how are we
reach as
doing?
many people as possible. Does that make sense?
Okay,
So it's
I see
a
what you mean.
broad target. In my mind, it's a broad
Zoom,
target.
are we good?
We're debating, but I think we're probably where we're going to be for right
Close
now.
enough.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right. So I'd like to do this, and we've got 3 folks obviously not in the room with us who are working as a team. What I commonly like to do is give everyone an opportunity to kind of digest this and think about it a little bit, and then give you 24 hours to respond back to Ann. I think that's what I'm going to do tonight. Keeping in mind the conversations you had as in groups, right, in teams, I would like you to do this. First of all, I'd love to hear from each team. Zoom, I know you're not done, so that's okay. But if you could each share your responses 1 through 11, that would be great, so you can hear from one another. And then I'm going to ask you to take the next 24 hours and do your own. And get those to Ann by this time tomorrow. Please email them, because it's going to be important to hear from all of you. Add those responses to what we hear from the community as well as the staff. I want to make sure that you're represented as much as anyone. So let's start with any one group here. And please, again, just share your responses 1 through 11. We'll go around the room. Zoom folks, if you have yours prepared, it'd be great to hear from you as well. If you can't, I completely understand. And then again, if you'd like to digest, process, think about this a little bit more, sit on it, then you can return your individual worksheets to Ann by this time tomorrow. We'll say 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. Okay? All right.
I think
so
we're okay with going and kind of doing our results whenever you're ready.
Sure,
from
please
our
do.
Zoom.
Please do.
So for common good, we had open access as 1. We had community events as 2. We had beginning level as 3. We did not have a 4 spot at this time, or a 5 spot. We have education and enrichment at 6. We have rentals at 7. Interim activities as 8. Food services as 10. Drop-ins, as 9. And we were kind of stuck and wanted a little bit more explanation on the special events and the equity.
Okay, great. Let me clarify special events for you. Special events, very simply, is in contrast to community events. Special events serve a market niche or a special interest. So you see things in there like the extravaganza, which is principally for families with children. Spray Park Chalk event, similarly. You think about being an older adult that's alone, that's not an event for you, as opposed to a community event that appeals to a large audience, a broad audience, regardless of interest, regardless of age, regardless of ability. So there's the delineation between those two. Equity, I shared this with the groups. It's just something to think about, is to be cautious you're not conflating inclusion with equity. Equity was the staff's intention of ensuring that they're reaching audiences and markets that have been, we'll say, traditionally underserved, underrepresented. Inclusion is really about making sure everyone in the community has access to all of the services provided by the organization. So they are two different things. That was, again, the staff's intention was to create equity services to reach audiences that just traditionally have not been reached by the organization. So hopefully those two explanations help.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, let's hear from, can I come to one of you folks to go through your list?
1, we have open access. 2, we have community events. 3, we have drop-in activities. 4 is education and enrichment. 5 is the beginner level skills-based activities. 6 is equity services. 7 is intermediate advanced skill-based activities. 8 special events, 9 rentals, 10 personalized services, and 11 food, beverage, and merchant.
Thank you. Let's have this group go next, please.
Okay, and we have 11 spots. It kind of sounds like Keno, doesn't it? Number 1 is open access. 2 is equity service. 3 is drop-in. 4 is community events. 5 is education/enrichment. 6 beginner level. 7 special events. 8 rentals. 9 intermediate and advanced. 10 personalized services, and 11 merchandise.
Thank you. And last but not least.
Okay, this was, yeah, interesting. So she clarified equity services, and there was still a lot of disagreement in our group over that. And then Mariana and I thought, well, because that's when we are again doing not what the instructions say, that we said equity services at the beginning, and then that flows through everything. So anyway, then we said open access, beginner level activities, 4 intermediate advanced skills. Yeah, no, I know, but I wouldn't have put it there myself anyway. Then drop-in activities, educational enrichment, community events, personalized services, rentals, food and beverage, and then special events last.
Okay, so work sessions being what they are, you all had a chance to hear from each group. What are your thoughts in response? And I would say your thoughts in response to obviously what you experienced in small groups, but also in response to what you heard from your colleagues on the council and the commission.
The discussion here, because we came from all different viewpoints, we still ended up with much agreement. So I felt very comfortable with what we came up with in the fact that really had different backgrounds where we were coming from, and yet came up with something concrete.
Yeah, I think what helped our group out, and I don't know if you want to use this, sorry, I'm just a teacher, I just think it, but is chunking it into 3 pots at first of the common good, the exclusive, and then in the middle. And so that was a way that we could agree, because we started talking and I was like, oh my gosh, like we're getting off, like we're debating on really details, and we're not like, so just having a little bit more like, here's our pots. And then once we had the pots, then the debate, then the conversation could happen, right? And then that just seemed to streamline the process a lot.
Thank you. Others?
I think we were all we ranked very similarly, maybe off by 1 or 2, but I think, all of us did get the idea, the ranking, the importance of each one. It's just that it felt you were demoting, as you put them, they're all important, but as if you put them 6, 7, it feels like, oh, but this is important too, and couldn't be fair to something.
Yeah, that's why it's important to understand we're not asking to prioritize. We're asking to rank based on common good and exclusive benefit. Common good and exclusive benefit. Yeah, it's tough to be in a position of influence and policy making, right? I mean, it's not easy, but that's why we look at this idea and this concept of common good versus exclusive, because arguably those services are important to someone in the community, right? So, anything from this group here? Thoughts, comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your contributions. This is what I'm going to ask you to do again. My mom always said repetition causes retention. So here it comes. Please take the next 24 hours, complete your worksheet. I'd like the group sheets, if you'd be kind enough, leave those behind. But I'd like you all to take your worksheet. If you need an extra one because you've doodled on the one you have, that's fine. We have more. Please, please, please put your name on the top, and then make sure 24 hours from now it is in Ann Lane's hands. You can deliver it in person, you can send it to her by email, whatever works for you. Allow me to share with you what next steps look like. So how does this all work? How does this work all roll up? So here's where we're headed. And if you could just give me a couple more minutes of your attention, I'd appreciate it. So this is where we're headed. The staff did this exercise today. You are doing it obviously this evening, and we are meeting with a small group of community members who have graciously agreed to spend some time with us starting at 7 p.m. at the school district. We're going to take your responses as well as everyone else's, and we're going to rank the categories on this continuum from the service category you believe aligns most with the common good to the category that you believe is most exclusive. We are then building out your financial sustainability strategy as a result. How that works, I'm going to just touch on next steps real quickly and then come back to any thoughts, comments, questions you'd like to share. The Community Representative Beneficiary Service Workshop starts at 7 p.m. We're going to take their responses, staff's responses, and your responses. We're going to create 4 beneficiary service models. We will have a staff model, we'll have a commission council model, we'll have a community model, and we're going to have a hybrid model. So we're going to take everybody's responses and synthesize them. We are going to then deliver those models to the project team and say, which model do you want to use moving forward? Keep in mind, there is no finish line to this work. This is not like a master plan that exists for 20 years. This is a place to begin. It's a baseline from which you work. You will have a working financial sustainability strategy as a result of your work tonight, as well as the cost of service results and the goals that are set for each category. And I'll go back to what that model looks like in a moment. We're about to schedule the cost of service reveal. We're in the final stages of the cost of service work. We schedule a 1.5-hour meeting with the project team. We go through the data. We share goal-setting principles, so it is not an arbitrary exercise. These are the things we want you to be thinking about. Cost of service is one. Budget projections are another. We want to do our best to make sure we're not setting arbitrary goals. Those goals will be set for each of the categories, and ultimately we will have a financial sustainability strategy draft for the organization's consideration. At the end of the day, it's yours, right? You're trying to, obviously, by way of this work, set the groundwork for ensuring that there's a strong fiscal baseline from which this organization continues to provide services. You're talking about growing an organization and you have a 36% cost recovery. So really be thinking about what that's going to mean practically for you moving forward. I will defer to some really prolific systems that really didn't do this work when they should have, and they are struggling right now. So I applaud you and I congratulate you, and it may sound a bit patronizing and I don't want it to be, but organizations that are doing this early in the game are going to be much better off 2 decades, 3 decades from now than systems that just are all enamored with growth and development and they're not thinking about how they're going to pay for the system over the long haul. So this is where we're headed. We're going to help you create this park and recreation financial sustainability strategy. Your contributions again this evening are really important, but it's not static, right? It's not static. Hopefully you continue to revisit it, you talk about it, you strategize what is going to make sense for the future of this organization as we move forward. So with that, Ann, any comments? Yes.
Thank you so much. I really always
We've lost Melendez's voice. Sorry, we can't hear your conversation.
They're switching batteries.
We're replacing the batteries in the microphone. Nobody's talking as
Linda,
of yet.
just go up to
Councilor Ewing.
the Jesse's mic or Mayor.
I feel like a talk show host. Like, okay, so one quick question I have is the city and the school district tend to share facility spaces. So this is all hearsay, but very recently I had a community member ask me about the fee for lights. And there was a curious question of why the city charges a different fee than the school district. So I'm just wondering, like when we're doing our cost analysis, like is there capacity to make sure the fees are the same? Well, because the question is, if it's Forest Grove Light and Power, then it should be the same. So I'm just wondering when you're doing this, if we're talking to the school district too, because it's a gray area and I did not know how to answer it.
Yeah, I'm going to share my perspective, and you can certainly jump in here. This organization is identifying its cost of doing business, and they're going to make their goal, or they're going to set their goals and make their fees and charges decisions based on the cost recovery goals that are set and the cost of doing business. I can't speak to what baseline the schools are using, whether or not they've looked at cost of service. That's outside of the parameters of this work. We are focused on the Park and Rec Department with the city. That's something I think you'll have to deliberate. The caution would be if you're establishing this strategy and you've accounted for your expenditures, then I would encourage you to make sure that your pricing aligns with the goals established here, or you're essentially compromising the integrity of the process. But I have no idea what the school district's done or how they're setting their fees, and I don't know if that's something you can speak to or not, but that's outside of the parameter of the work. We're focused on the city. So, would you add anything, Ann? No. Any other thoughts, comments, questions before we wrap up this evening? Well, again, we're heading to the school district to meet with the community. I want to thank you all for your time and attention. Ann, any final comments you want to share?
I too just want to thank everybody for coming and participating tonight. This is a really important process for us and laying the groundwork for our future. So thank you.
Is it good to go? Yeah, Donna, good? Okay. Ready to go. You guys good? I would like to call to order this Forest Grove City Council meeting on Monday, March 18th at 7:01 p.m. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Councillor Gustafson?
Here.
Council President Rippey?
Here.
Councillor Martinez?
Here.
Councillor Marshall?
Here.
Councillor Valenzuela?
Here.
Councillor Ewing?
Here.
Mayor Wenzel?
Here. Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Atfalati. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. Would the audience and council please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It is Community Development Month proclamation. That's National Community Development Month, April 2024. Whereas the month of April has been designated as National Community Development Month by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program and the Home Investment Partnerships HOME program. And whereas the CDBG program provides annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities to low and moderate income people. And whereas the Home Investment Partnership Home Program provides funding to local communities to create decent, safe, affordable housing opportunities for low-income persons. Nationally, over 1 million units of affordable housing have been completed by using home funds. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Forest Grove does hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as National Community Development Month. In Forest Grove, Oregon, Washington County, in support of these two valuable programs that have made tremendous contributions to the viability of housing stock, infrastructure, public services, and economic vitality in our community. Thank you. Thank you. Next up is item B on our agenda, public comments. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to the City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand feature to be called on. So is there any, okay, there's nobody signed up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to give public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to Zoom. Are there any Zoom attendees who would like to give public comment? I don't see any attendees this meeting. It's like a first in 4 years. Okay. Well, with that, we will move on to the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Councilors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items. What is the wish of the council?
Move that we approve the consent agenda.
1 minute, please, Council President Rippey. Councilor Gustafson.
I'd like to remove C4 from the consent agenda.
Okay, so item C4 is going to be removed from the consent agenda. Do you want to make your motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of item C4.
Second.
It was moved, the consent agenda minus item C4 was moved by Council President Rippey and seconded by Councilor Valenzuela. All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say aye. Okay, hearing none, the consent agenda is approved by the Forest Grove City Council, or with the exception of item C4, with a vote of 7-0. Okay, so separate discussion on item C4. Councilor Gustafson.
I'll be abstaining from C4 due to a perceived bias.
Thank you. What is the wish of the council for item C4?
I move that we approve item C4.
Thank you, Council President. Council President Rippey made a motion for item C4. It was seconded by Councilor Marshall. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same signal. Hearing none. Item C4 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 6-0 with Councilor Gustafson abstaining. Okay, moving on to item D. Additions or deletions. City Manager, any additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any proposed by council?
I have my hand up. Councilor Ewing? I would like us to consider as a consensus to put on our next available opportunity for a work session with our IT department. I had an opportunity, as was extended to all of the council, to have my iPad and technology upgraded. And during that time, I just learned so much information. I know this has also been an item that Donna has mentioned several times, but I would really like to have a work session so we can discuss, what's currently happening with IT, what are our future goals, and security. Could I get a consensus to put this on the next available date for a work session?
Can I ask, does staff know the topic, understand the topic of the work session?
I had brought it, I'm sorry, I guess you're asking me. I had talked with Jared, the IT manager, and I said that I would bring it up at this meeting so that we could get planned a work session. With that, I would assume that we probably will have more conversation with Paul and Jesse as to what we'd like that work session to also include.
Jesse.
So we can certainly have a work session. I know that we plan to address some of these topics regarding IT at the upcoming budget meeting as well.
Right.
And so I can take a look at the calendar. Councilor Ewan, I think maybe if we could have another conversation about a little more specific about what the topic would be, that would be good. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure that we are going to be addressing IT security and some of the other IT issues during the budget process as well.
I knew that we were, Jesse, and I had hoped that perhaps we could I'm not looking at a long work session from talking with Jacob. I just don't feel that I'm as informed as I need to be about the different technological issues and changes. And I think that that would help also me understand the presentation via the budget. So we can certainly talk, but I would like us to see if we couldn't get a work session.
Councilor Gustafson.
I just wanted to kind of double down on that. I'm going to have some questions myself since I've been appointed to the Cybersecurity League of Oregon Cities group. There's going to be a lot of questions I have as well. So Jesse, I can email you kind of what that would look like.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
So that he's more prepared.
Okay, can I get consensus? I got a thumbs up from Council President Rippey. Okay, we have consensus on the dais to move forward with that work session. Thank you, Councilor Ewing and Councilor Gustafson. Any other proposed additions or deletions from council? Seeing none. Okay, we're going to move on to item E, which is our presentation. The council will hold questions until the end of each presentation. A 2-minute reminder will be given to the presenter to conclude remarks. First up, we have Washington County Commissioner for District 4, Mr. Jerry Willey, who's going to come and give us an update. Thank you, Commissioner Willey. Yeah, I think it's good, but staff will tell us when we're wrong.
Well, thank you very much, by the way, to give me a few minutes tonight to just bring you up to date on some of the things that we're dealing with at the county and some of our priorities. And I'm taking full credit for not having very many people here tonight because the word obviously got out.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So for everyone who is listening, just to give you a quick demographics of Washington County, obviously we have over 600,000 people. We're divided into 4 districts, and this is District 4, as the mayor stated. We have about, the county has about 225,000 people who live in unincorporated Washington County, so not cities. District 4 has 6 cities in it: Hillsborough, Cornelius, Forest Grove, Banks, Gaston, and North Plains. And so it's very unique. Works perfectly for me as a former mayor. I love working with cities. So it is fun to come and make these presentations to you. we have, as a county, we have a budget of $1.7 billion. A lot of money. Unfortunately, only about $300 million of that is general fund money, and it's general fund money that we use to run operations and keep trains going on time and the services that are required. And so we are moving into budget season, as I know you are as well. And we are anticipating from last year, we had a $25 million decrease in our general fund. This year, we're anticipating another $10 million. So it's very, very difficult. So you say, well, why is that? We're growing, the economy's coming back. Primarily, what's our primary source of revenues for our general fund is property tax. Property taxes are capped at 3%. We all know that certainly inflation and the cost of services, cost of construction is significantly higher than 3%. So we lose a lot of ground in that regard. We also have a number of services that our state is mandating that we begin to take on additional demands for behavioral health, mental health, homelessness. I'll talk a little bit more about all of those in a minute. All of those, and certainly our public safety. All of those services are increasing in demand and, of course, increasing in cost. And so that's what the balance that we're trying to manage as we go forward. So we talk about homelessness, affordable housing, behavioral health. All of those, we used to kind of look at those as individual items, but we all now know that they are all combined in some regards. And so with the homelessness, fortunately, we have the shelter housing initiative that was passed a few years ago that creates about $70 million for Washington County. We are using that money to provide housing services, shelter services for our homeless community. We had to go through the time, place, and manner process as well as you did. And so with all of that, to facilitate the time, place, and manner, we had to have housing, shelter for our homeless community. We've been able to do that. And we've been able to exceed, I believe, what our expectations and certainly the regional expectations. We are facilitating and spending all of that money on housing services. Again, I use that term probably incorrectly. Shelter housing services for our homeless community to make sure that we do not have to go back to having camps like you experienced here for several years out on Camp 47 and other places. So we are very positive and strong about utilizing this money to make sure that we do not regress back to that. Affordable housing also, there was an affordable housing initiative several years ago. We've been able to facilitate that money, and we have exceeded the expectations of that. We have increased our supply of regulated affordable housing and have another 1,000 homes in the pipeline to be affordable to households earning 60% of the area median income or below. So we continue to focus on that. As you all know, we have gone through that amount of money that Washington County has allocated, and we'll see what next steps are to provide funding for our affordable housing. I was in Salem today to have an Association of Oregon Counties meeting regarding House Bill 4002, which is certainly our behavioral health, public safety, Measure 110, kind of all wrapped in together there, conversation to see where we go next with that. It's a very positive opportunity that we have. I'm glad that the state stepped up and provided significant funding for that, but we will now see how we put all of that together and make sure it works. What we do know is that we have a mental health crisis, we have a behavioral health crisis, and all of that is tied in certainly to some of the demands on our homelessness and some of our housing folks. With that, we are very happy. I'm sure that you've heard that we have the Center for Addiction and this last legislative session, they awarded us the last funding, so we are now complete in our funding. We are moving ahead. We have 2 facilities that will be opened up, one in Hillsborough and one right on the edge of Hillsborough and Beaverton. They're going to be phenomenal facilities. We're very happy about that. The bad news is they won't open until probably late 25. So we've got about 18 months. We can certainly facilitate. We could use those services immediately. So we're very happy that we're able to provide the funding for that. We have federal funding and state funding, so this was all hands on deck. We're very happy that we were able to do that. And then moving to transportation, we have the MSTIP money that we are looking at. The MSTIP 3F funding is coming through. We're looking at projects for that. Forest Grove has 2 projects in the funding cycle. The Martin Road Highway 47 is actually going to be wrapping up pretty soon. I come in from, and I can't even remember the name, the road that I come in on, where you put in the roundabout on where it connects up with 47.
Burton Road?
Yeah, I'm going to find out when that's going to be done, because I have to go out and around on the loop here.
Martin.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was supposed to be done a while ago, so the community page is hot about that. I'm just going to tell you.
So I better reach out to our LUT bunch and say, let's get this thing going. Because I completely agree. It sends us out and about and around. And then design work is in the program for Highway 47 Fern Hill Maple intersection improvement. And we're hoping to proceed to construction in 2025, depending on funding well on that. So Forest Grove has got some great couple of projects going on there. And there's several other that, as you know, District 4 gets an equal allocation with the rest. North Plains has got some project going on. Banks got a project going on. So we've got some funding available. We're just looking forward to getting those projects going. It takes a long time to get these projects done. And then some of the more fun stuff, Councilor Rippey is certainly aware of this. Our Council Creek Trail, we're continuing to move along with that. Again, that's a very slow process that we have on that. We're looking forward to some design specifications on that, some ownership agreements, who's going to manage the Council Creek Trail, depending on, of course, Forest Grove's part, Cornelius' part, Hillsborough's part, and the county has a section in there. So the 4 of us are going to need to get together, talk about how we maintain that and what we want to see for our particular section of that. But it's really exciting to me, and I'll look forward to when we can start the, I'll tell you the first step of this is when the rail and the ties are pulled out of the ground and it's leveled up, and all of a sudden you start to see this is going to be a very cool place. And the reason why I can say that is because the Salmonberry Trail is doing the same thing. We have pulled rail and ties on 7 miles from Banks out towards Buxton. And as soon as we did that and it was smoothed out, we didn't do anything else. People started coming out and we're on the trail. So now we have to go out and put up signs that says, nope, you can't do this. You can't, because we have risk with this, but it's also just a nice rail bit. But it does give you a glimpse of coming attractions, and it's really going to be an exciting project. So not only the Salmonberry Trail, but Council Creek. And remember, at some point in time in the long distance future, those 2 are supposed to connect up. So we'll see. We got to get one done before we can start to work on it. But other than that, that's all the information I have. I don't even know how long I took, so I apologize if I went over time.
You're good. Any questions for Commissioner Willie?
I do.
Okay.
Councilor Ewing. Hi, Jerry. How you doing?
Good.
Beautiful weather to be out here in Forest Grove. I have a couple of questions for you. When we're talking about affordable housing, and that's kind of a passion of mine, and you say 60%, Are we really doing also a focus on workforce housing? Because there's kind of a distinct difference between affordable housing and then workforce housing, which I think that more of the middle income working folk are having a difficulty just getting a home, even though they're working individuals. So I'd like a little bit more information. I know that you've spent the affordable housing dollars, but perhaps a little bit more attention to the workforce housing. And then could you give me a definer between when you say behavioral health, because I see we've got, you know, mental health and then behavioral health. Could you give a little bit more explanation as to what would be in that particular category? Thanks.
Well, okay, I'll do the first one, workforce housing, absolutely. Workforce housing is very closely associated with just affordable housing, and we are all focused on both of those. Yes, we want to make sure that the 60% median income folks have certainly opportunities for housing, but I think the workforce housing comes alongside the same thing. It's just that the money was designated for the affordable housing and the 60% median income. So that's where we had to design that. I can only say that we talk about both of them. We certainly talk about workforce housing and workforce opportunities, almost in the same paragraph, but again, affordable housing, the 60% had to take precedence. So we had to do that. Behavioral health, I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone in explaining that, but to me, behavioral health is what we're dealing with addiction and certainly trauma. And so when we deal with that function of it, that aspect of it, we have to have a different treatment mode on that. And I think that's where House Bill 4002 is definitely going to be focused. We have to be able to provide services and opportunities rather than arresting them and putting them in jail, which we don't have the jail capacity to do that right now anyway, and provide them opportunity for treatment of those things. How that differentiates from mental health, well, I'll say I'll get back to you because I'm certainly not.
Commissioner Willie, I'm hoping you can take back just appreciation to your SHS department, Marnie, Jess. So Forest Grove really relies on our partners in order to be a full service city and do the best we can. And last year, Marnie worked with us, you know, Chief Ryman, and addressed some of the needs at the Camp 47, the 47 encampment. And I just really appreciate the work that y'all did because it really helped us out in meeting. There's a couple of competing interests, and we all really had the same goal, I think, is to get people in some sort of supportive housing, maybe some resources that they need. And it was just done so well by Marnie's team. And I just want to really tell you that and tell you that we appreciate that. I believe 70% of the people that were living on 47 received some sort of, or were at least offered sheltering services. The camp's been closed now since July. And so that's really, we were receiving public comment monthly from community members in that neighborhood, you know, about environmental things, safety. And so that was just a huge, I just want to say we really appreciate it. And Marnie's just so great to work with. And it's a way the county and the city work together to meet our needs. And so if you could take that back, that would be great.
I will certainly do that. Thank you, Mayor. And I want to give a shout out to your chief because he worked very closely with, and you know, I hate to do that. Really,
I love the guy.
Yeah. Chief Ryman was really instrumental in helping our sheriff's department facilitate that and try and make something really bad better.
Mm-hmm.
So, team play. And I will certainly send that back to Arnie and her team.
Great, thank you. Council President.
Commissioner Willie, thank you very much for coming. And I would just like to echo what the mayor said with regard to the discussion, particularly the community meetings that were held about the Elm Street property. Jess and her people were much involved with those discussions. They went very well. I attended both of them. And they just conducted themselves very professionally. They listened. They had answers. Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. I will certainly share that as well. I know this is, this has been, we're 3 years into this. This has been a hard time. It's been new stuff. So I will certainly share that with her too. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for Commissioner Willie? Okay, well, thanks for coming out to the Grove. Have a nice night.
You bet.
Okay, we're up. We're like right on time, Commissioner Willie. So our next presentation, E2, is from the Forest Grove Senior Center. And I would invite Sophia Statomaitis, I hope, the executive director. And I know last name is Mr. Kolb, but I don't know first name. Adam Kolb, that's right. Thank you.
Presentation up there. So first off, let me start off by saying thank you very much for having us. It's an honor to talk to you all tonight. I am on the board as the president for the Senior Center, and Sophia is our executive director. So we're going to be talking with you, next slide, be talking with you a little bit about what's going on at the Senior Center to get everybody up to speed. So the Senior Center right now, just as a kind of a demographic that we're working with, we're focused, most of the folks that are coming in are seniors in their 70s to 90s. We have a number of programs that are being worked at the center, continually adding things all the time. I won't list everything off, but everybody can see there what's on there. There are a lot of good opportunities for lots of opportunities for the center to bring in different programs and such. The next slide there is talks a little bit about what our income is, what our budget is, and what our expenses. So to date, we have a budgeted income of about $198,000. This is made up mostly of fundraising that we're doing throughout the year. Bingo is a opportunity that we've been able to be fairly successful with at the center, running the bingo program. And then if you look at the flip side of thing, our expenses are a bit higher than what our income is, a little over $200,000. The majority of this is payroll, so payroll accounts for $130,000. There's not, for our staff, there's not any insurance, medical, dental, any of the normal benefits you would see throughout most businesses. And so the salaries and the hourly wages haven't been adequate to be able to run the center successfully. We've been working on a number of things to try and look for opportunities to raise those amounts, but it's been pretty difficult. Next slide. The shortfalls are really around the wages. What we'd like to do is get competitive wages for the folks that are at the Senior Center. We have about an $80,000 shortfall. And a majority of this is going to be around the director's salary as well as some of the supporting staff. It is a pretty small staff right now. It's our director and about 3 to 4 part-time people that are working. We do rely pretty heavily on volunteers, and we do have an endowment that we have that's been fairly flat as far as keeping money. We seem to have been. I've been on the board for about 10 years. It's pretty much stayed in the black most of those years and done pretty well. But that endowment is something that we've been trying to grow, so at some point we could become more self-sustaining. But right now, with our current model, our trajectory isn't sustainable. So talking about some of the synergies that we could do, there's a lot of programs that are out in the community that we could potentially get involved with and use those opportunities to bring in funds to help run the center. There's a number of things that I've stated here on the slides, working with Park and Rec, working with the library, working with other groups to further some of the activities. Right now, we have the center is actually fairly unutilized after 4 p.m. There's opportunities there to bring in additional programs for the center. So as far as the cost to get there, we would love to add new programs. We're always looking at potential grants, a number of things. So an example, a Tai Chi instructor would be about $100 an hour to train, to come in for training. They're usually certified, and it does cost a little bit of money to have them there. That's probably one of the more high-end things that we're looking to do. But if we had the opportunities and we had the funding, the programs come with it. And so we'd love to have an additional staff coordinator. These are all of our pipe dreams right now. Right now, we're really just trying to figure out a way to balance out. And we're also looking for competitive wages for the staff. The folks that have come and worked, they've done it through a labor of love. And so I know many of you know some of the past directors that have been at the center, Rayanne and Sonia. These are folks that have done it because they really have a passion for it. And, that's something that we would really like to be able to provide, better wages for the folks. We do need to bring in more volunteers. We've found that after COVID, we've struggled with that a little bit. Bringing in people to volunteer. We've tapped out a lot of groups. We've gone to the high school, we've gone to Pacific, we've gone to some of the civic groups that are in Forest Grove. And then just people that are come in that want to help off the street. All of those numbers have generally declined after. And as you can imagine, that's pretty important to being able to run the center. Lastly, our dream is to get to grow our endowment fund to about $5 million. At that point, we would be able to be pretty much self-sustaining off the interest. And so, in the future, that's our goal, and that's the goal we've had for a while, and we've made some progress at building that. But usually, on a year-to-year basis, we're working with a budget that has higher expenses. So some of the ideas that we have that we want to present to the council here is talking about what the opportunities are with the city. I want you to consider, is there an opportunity to potentially have our director funded under the city umbrella? These are things that I'm just throwing out. So not sure what everything is possible, but maybe having a line item on the city budget. I know that the building is something that the city owns, as well as the utilities are being paid by the city. We're looking at trying to grow the center and trying to have it be more part of this this community as not only a senior center but also a community center. So is there opportunities to fund through bond measures? I know that we've recently done a Park and Fire and Park and Rec levy. If there's an opportunity for something like that in the future. And then we're going to continue to look for operational grants. We found a lot of grants that are capital improvements of the building. We've taken advantage of those. But looking to add additional programs for the center is going to take more operational grants that can help with our general fund. All right, so some of the things I'd like the council to consider is what you all see the center being used for. This obviously is a very social place for our seniors and many community members that are utilizing the building. What do you see for it? What demographics should we be catering to? Should we be looking at continuing to keep it senior focused? or really reaching into the community and looking for opportunities within the community. Are there other synergies that you see between some of the city-run operations here and what the senior center and the community center could do as a group together? Are there other folks that we could partner with? And what other ideas do you have? That is, I believe, the last slide there. And primary contact information. This is Sophia's contact information. Everyone in your busy days.
Okay, Counselor Ewing.
Thanks for coming this evening. It's really nice to hear from you and have you in the auditorium with us. I have mentioned to the council during our retreat that, excuse me, there were concerns about sustainability. And this is something that I believe we're going to begin having a conversation on, but I do appreciate your questions for the council. And it has been short that I've been their liaison, but truly a dedicated group of board members and volunteers that support that effort. But the volunteers are declining as well as financial support. So I hope we'll have a meatier conversation when we go forward with our goals and objectives to kind of see where we want to go with this particular important nonprofit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor Ewing. Any other counselors? Yeah, I appreciate the questions. Candidly, and just because I'm pretty honest, I'm just going to speak for myself. I think long-term wise, we've done a lot of work to invest in recreation, in our recreation programming. It wasn't until 2 years ago we passed a levy to get a recreation coordinator. Right, we're currently right now going through our rate fee structure. I think for myself, the end result is we have recreation for everybody in our community, and that would include senior centers, right, youth recreation, adult recreation. The timeline, I just don't know, and I don't know exactly how we get there or how long it's going to take to get there and how we're going to get there. But I think, and I don't want to speak for anyone else on the council, but you have a Parks and Rec director who's run seniors programs in McMinnville and has done a lot of work. So I can't give you like a definite answer right now. Plus it would be like inappropriate because we haven't had a work session. We haven't gone to budget and these things, but I know for myself, I was actually just at the senior center last month with the Tualatin Valley Harmonic Grandmasters for the barbershop quartet. You guys had bingo in the main room and I was back there with that class. So I've lived here my whole life. I totally know the value and will work in ways, whatever way I can to help support the center.
Appreciate that. And this is really meant to be a conversation starter versus something to take away today. So, appreciate any type of partnership we can come up with. Appreciate Councilor Ewing's remarks about, just starting to talk about that in budget.
Cool. Well, thank you too for your volunteer work and how you serve our community. Okay, have a nice night. Thanks. Thank you to all the supporters who came to give you support too.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to item F1, public hearings, ordinances, and resolution. I will now open the public hearing on ordinance number 2024-04. If approved by the City Council, this ordinance will amend the traffic code section of the Forest Grove City Code. I'm going to have Assistant City Manager and Paul Downey and Police Chief Ryman come present for staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilor. I'll probably do most of the staff report. Henry's here to ask questions since a lot of this stuff ends up coming through municipal court. And that's one of the So proposing to add new code language and remove existing code language to allow service of citations or complaints by certified mail, and also remove some redundant language in some of the certain codes. I'm going to go through the high points of what we're looking to change. One of the things we're looking to change is serving citations to property owners who live outside the area, which can be difficult. Not being able to serve the citation on the property owner makes enforcement of potential code violations difficult. To address this difficulty, we're looking at serving citations on property owners who live outside the area. A new city code was written enabling the police department to serve city code citation or complaint by certified mail. Many cities already do this. Proposed code allows delivery of citation or complaint by personal mail or certified mail. Mail return receipt requested to the person to be served. If they're served by mail, staff has to prove the person had notice of citation or complaint either by return receipt confirming delivery or by rejecting the citation or complaint as part of the certified mail delivery. That's one of the major changes we're trying to make, particularly with code enforcement. We'll make code enforcement job a lot easier if they can serve the citation to people. The police department also has difficulty taking enforcement against trailers and vehicles that are parked on the street and appear to be abandoned. Changing the ordinance, we're proposing as language to include or within 500 feet of the same location for more than 24 hours and meets one or more of the conditions listed in the ordinance. And for an abandoned vehicle, we're going to add a condition that says the vehicle appears to have been abandoned by its owner and no person residing at a property in the vicinity of the vehicle claims a right of control over it. That condition already exists for abandoned trailers. This clause enables the police department to tag the vehicles that clearly look to be abandoned or determined to be abandoned because no one in the vicinity claims ownership. The other code changes we're making are needed cleanup or clarification to the changes in city's fees that we've made or clarifying the process involved. Went over the major changes that we're going to make, so I'll take any questions. Henry and Rory will take any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for staff? I don't see any. I'm looking at both my venues. Okay, so I will now call on persons who signed up to comment on the ordinance. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Are there any proponents who would like to testify on ordinance 2024-04? Right, no one was signed up in the, okay. Any opponents who would like to give public comments? And any other comments? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing. Sorry, I got myself. Is there a motion from council to approve the second reading of ordinance 2024-04?
Second or first?
First, did I say second? Well, I would just like to say that's what the script said, but anyways, is there a motion from council to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2024-04? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2024-04 was moved by Councilor Martinez and seconded by Councilor Rippey. Wait, are there any additional? Do I have to get an all? It's a little. It says now. Are there any additional questions or further discussion from council on the motion? But I don't have. Will you read it first? No. Okay. Are there any additional questions or further discussions from the council on the motion before we proceed with the roll call vote? That's what the script says. Then it says city manager. I know. I thought it was the other way.
The city manager should read it before there's a vote on it. So I think it should be discussion, city manager reads it, and then a roll call vote.
Right. Okay. So any discussion?
Sorry about that.
That's fine. Okay, will the city manager please read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 2024-04, adding to and amending Forest Grove Code of Ordinances, Title 1, General Provisions, Section 10.09, Title 7, Traffic Code, Section 73.055, Immobilization and Impoundment of Vehicles, Section 74.01, Definitions, Section 74.05, Towing and Storage Liens, Section 74.06, pre-towing notice. Section 74.07, post-towing notice. Section 74.09, charges and release of vehicle or trailer. Section 74.10, sale or disposal of vehicle or trailer not reclaimed. And Section 74.11, sale or disposition of vehicle or trailer appraised at $500 or less.
Thank you. Would the city recorder please call for the vote?
Counselor Gustafson?
Sorry, yes.
Council President Rippey?
Yes.
Counselor Martinez?
Yes.
Counselor Marshall?
Yes.
Counselor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Counselor Ewing?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes, ordinance number 2024-04 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. Thank you very much. Moving on to resolution 2024-08, adopting the 2024 City Council goals and objectives. I'm going to turn this over to Ashley or to Jesse. Does it matter?
To Ashley.
Hi, Ashley. You're still muted. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. And I'm here to present the staff report for this resolution. And so, in accordance with your council rules, the City Council sets short and long-term goals and objectives every year that must be adopted no later than March. The council goals and objectives provide direction to staff in the development of the city budget and department work plans. And City Council and staff gathered on Saturday, February 24th for a work session retreat to set clear direction for the organization and refine goals and objectives for 2024. And in preparation for this retreat, SSW Consulting conducted outreach interviews with council and staff to discuss opportunities and challenges on the horizon that should be considered as part of the goal refinement process. The results of the outreach informed the development of the retreat agenda to ensure a productive and engaging retreat designed to achieve the following outcomes: to develop a shared understanding of the organizational and community context, to inform the team's goal refinement. We did this through a context mapping exercise together. Second, to refine the goals to address community needs and plan for the future. Third, to identify measurable objectives with clear outcomes and to track progress over time. And fourth, to prioritize the objectives to inform the prioritize objectives to inform the implementation plan for staff. We worked together in large and small groups to pursue these outcomes together. And one of the items I'd like to highlight from the retreat was part of the context mapping exercise, in which we celebrated a number of accomplishments of the Forest Grove team from 2023, including ordinances that address homelessness, drug usage on public property, and drone usage. Other accomplishments include a new park, updating boards and commissions, initiating a 2040 vision and action plan, lowering barriers to building accessory dwelling units, significant transportation and facility improvements, expanded recreation opportunities, additional incentive programs to promote electric alternative mobility options, and planning efforts to develop a park in a historically underserved area. And following the retreat, council and staff worked together to further refine the goals and objectives, and completed a live polling exercise to prioritize the objectives to be a valuable data point for staff, and that happened at the February 26th work session. The results of the goal-setting retreat and work session include 4 council goals and 19 supporting objectives, as well as the addition of strategic planning to the list of the city's values. The goals include, the 4 goals are: 1, to address long-term growth and support housing stability; 2, plan an inclusive and sustainable community; 3, improve community safety; 4, enhance recreation opportunities for all. And each of these goals has specific outcomes tied to those, and of course, specific objectives to support those goals. And those are listed in your packet. And for each objective, city staff assigned departments and timelines of 1 to 3 years, depending on the expected completion of the objective. Additionally, staff will develop a work plan for each objective, outlining the milestones, fiscal impacts, staff roles, and responsibilities. And after the goals and objectives are adopted by council, they will be included in a retreat summary report, which will detail the retreat process that we went through together and provides additional context as to how the goals and objectives were developed, and outlines the assigned department and expected timeline for each objective. And this report will be included in your council notebooks for reference in the future. I just would like to take the opportunity to say thank you for the opportunity to support your team and the Forest Grove Council staff and community through this work. You have such a talented and dedicated team here at the city, and it's been such a pleasure to work with you all. And we're excited for the wonderful things the next year has in store for you all and for Forest Grove. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions from council? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt resolution 2024-08?
I move that we approve resolution number 2024-08.
I second.
Resolution number 2024-08 was moved by Council President Rippey and seconded by Councilor Valenzuela. Will the city recorder please read the resolution by title only?
Resolution number,
Go ahead, sorry, Jess.
no worries. Resolution number 2024-08, adopting the 2024 City Council goals and objectives.
Thank you. Discussion by council? I just want to say thank you to Ashley. It's just always really nice to have a facilitator come in. I'm like before consultant facilitator post, and it's just so nice to have someone to like organize us and really move the conversation in a productive way. I think that in the past, I would assume it would be hard for the city manager to tell us, like, get ourselves like back on task. So I think you all do a really good job, and you did a great job. This is the first time you took it over from Sarah for our organization, and you just did a great job. So I want to say thank you to you for that. Any other questions? Okay, well, if no further questions, I will now ask the city recorder, I'm going to correct titles, to please call for a roll call vote.
Councilor Gustafson?
Yes.
Council President Rippey?
Yes.
Councilor Martinez?
Yes.
Councilor Marshall?
Yes.
Councilor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Councilor Ewing?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes, resolution number 2024-08 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ashley. Have a good night.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, moving on. I think Keith is up next. He was queued up in the back. We're going to move on to resolution number 2024-09, and I'm going to ask our Light and Power Director, Keith Horman, to do the staff report.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. I'll briefly run through the staff report. As you know, the line extension policy is the model that we use to bill our customers for system developments, anything that happens on the system where we need to charge them. And as most of you were on council and you remember in 2019, I came to you with a line extension to update it at that point after an 11-year span, which you all did approve. Councilor Rippey had mentioned at that time to please do not let this go that long in between again. So I did remember that. Also just to keep you updated, in 2022, we also came back to you saying that we're seeing some crazy prices in our materials. And I requested that we have a material surcharge, which you all approved. And then this last fall, just to keep the story going, you approved a short extension on that material surcharge because we were still seeing that while we reviewed the policy. Well, since this last fall, we have reviewed the policy and we do have some recommendations that we'd like to give to you. As you know, as soon as we update our policy, the next day it's already outdated because we're using, or at least the next July, we're using current labor charges and everything else. So what we are proposing to go away from the per lot charge, the crediting, and just go to an actual cost-based scenario. So in other words, what it costs us is what we pass that cost on to the customer. This includes subdivisions and all new extensions that we do. So that's what we're requesting. We just kind of change that model and just we cover our costs and we recoup those costs as we install systems, extend the system. That's all I have there. If you have questions.
Questions for staff? Council President Rippey.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. Does this simplify your work or just very much? That's what I thought. So I just wanted to hear you say it. So thank you.
I think it's a swell idea too.
What's that?
It's a swell idea. It makes a lot of sense. And I mean, we're public utilities. It's just cost recovery. So any other questions for staff? Okay, is there a motion to adopt resolution 2024-09?
I move that we, just a second, place here. I move that we approve resolution 2024-09.
I second.
Great. Resolution number 2024-09 was moved by Council President Rippey and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution adopting revisions to Light and Power Department line extension policy and repealing resolutions number 2019-50, number 2022-11, and number 2023-49.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion from council? Seeing none, I will ask the city recorder to please call roll vote.
Councilor Gustafson?
Yes.
Council President Rippey?
Yes.
Councilor Martinez?
Yes.
Councilor Marshall?
Yes.
Councilor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Councilor Ewing?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes, resolution number 2024-09 has been adopted by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Thank you, Keith. We're going to move on to item G, council communications, and we will start with Council President Rippey.
Yeah, you caught me flat-footed.
Want me to skip you for a minute?
Yes, would you please?
I would be more than happy. Councilor Gustafson?
Okay. I don't have a lot. I did go to the PAC retreat on the 2nd of March, and they did have some more questions. So I'm just going to start running them off here. One of the questions was around, I know we can't fundraise, but they have the art festival that's going to be coming up this season and wanted to know if they can accept money from sponsors of the art festival or from people that just want to donate to the PAC to help them do the things that they do. So is sponsorships and donations acceptable?
I mean, my response to that is no. You know, I think we went through some of the questions at the last meeting about like their mini grants. My understanding is anything they had in their fund before we did the sponsorship, the arts, like using TLT funds, they can use any of those pre-earned fundraising funds for mini grants. But my understanding from the work session, and staff and council can correct me, is that they can only fundraise for a big capital project, like a big actual thing. So an operational festival street that they've been working on does not fit within that. So tell them no, thank you for that.
Oh, okay, so this isn't fundraising; it's donations and sponsorships. But that's fine. I can let them know. But excuse me, not fundraising and sponsorships, but donations. So
Paul,
if somebody wants to donate,
hang on, let me check with Paul.
Okay.
I'm going to call Paul up here about donations. I just think my initial thought is it's kind of slippery, but we'll let the expert finance director. Hi, Paul. Thanks for coming back.
Hello.
We accept donations for other departments, like for example, the library will get donations, the parks will get donations. So a donation to the Public Arts Commission wouldn't really be anything different than that, as long as they're not going out seeking the donation. If somebody voluntarily makes a donation to them.
So I stand corrected. Voluntary donations are acceptable. You can't seek donations, so they couldn't say, hey, donate to this or accepting donations at this email, but they can accept. They can't seek, but they can accept. Okay.
Could I have a little bit more clarification on sponsorships? Because sponsorships, again, to me, and fundraising are kind of a different thing than fundraising. So you have an event, somebody wants to sponsor a table, which we've done as a city before. Can I have a little bit more clarification on the overview of sponsorship? Paul, please.
Sure. Oh, okay. I could give you some
you as well,
thoughts.
Donna. Just opening
okay,
the conversation.
The
Just
city's
to give some
not
examples
really
of-
done sponsorships itself on events that it's done. I mean, we've sponsored at a few other things, but we really haven't done a lot of sponsorships. I know there's probably one waste event that we did where we took some sponsorships. Waste Management helped sponsor it because they were putting it on and they were doing a lot of the work. So it's not something that we actively looked for sponsorships to say we'll give you $5,000 whatever to sponsor this event. We don't actively go out looking for sponsorships for things. So we really don't do a lot of events of that nature.
But we have sponsored as a city, is my understanding, Paul, for other nonprofits. If we purchased a table for dinner,
We don't allow table purchases for dinners. That's a strict council guideline that we do not do. We don't do sponsorships for other entities' fundraising events.
Okay.
I do want to make one small clarification. We do have the tourism event sponsorship program, which is specifically for sponsorships. But with regard to the question about purchasing tables at a fundraising event, no, we have not done that in the past. Just maybe if I could ask a question of Councilor Gustafson, Mayor.
Yes.
Is the sponsorship, typically sponsorship is associated with fundraising? So I was curious, would this be the Public Arts Commission seeking sponsorships from people for the event? And would the sponsorships cost money?
What it could look like would be, and I can give some examples, any flyers that need to be printed to promote the festival that costs money. So sometimes GAN Printing sponsors by providing printing for free. So it's a trade. Or for instance, maybe the chamber wants to sponsor by paying for the banner for the art festival, and they would get their logo on the banner or other materials in trade for that sponsorship. So it's kind of looks like that. It's not money that's being given to, like to put in their bank, right? Where you fundraise, you're usually, putting the money in your bank or you're using it for a specific thing. So the sponsorship is specific to something that is needed at that specific event. I understand it is slippery, but it's also difficult. It's just a weird spot because this group does really,
I'm almost
bring
wondering-
everything home, right? And they're working so hard to not have funds or the ability to even obtain sponsorships makes things difficult. So something to chew on. If there's no other questions on that one, I had a couple more.
Yeah, go ahead. But the other thing I'm curious, like one thing about the funding, I want to ask staff is, when do they receive the funds? Weren't they getting like $10,000 this fiscal year for from the TLT?
Yes, the
Oh.
Public Arts Commission is getting approximately that much. It's for installation art.
Oh,
Those
so it's
monies
not-
from the TLT is for installation art. Yeah.
We'll actually
Um,
hold
the
that
oth-
money.
The other thing about sponsorships that I'd actually would like to reach out to legal counsel. I don't know if there might be a city speech issue there. There's when the city sponsors an event, that's one thing. When the city opens up an event for a sponsorship, that's entirely another. So I'd like to look into that kind of separate question and get back to the council if I may.
Okay, yeah, can we we'll look more into this, or staff, well, I'm not going to look more into it. Staff will look more into it. And then, but go ahead with your report. Thank you, Councilor Gustafson.
Okay. Sure. And then the other one was they wanted to clarify that if they are subject to the same public meeting rules.
So if the general rule is if
She froze. I don't think we didn't hear her full question. Dawn is still frozen right now. So I don't know what her question is. Let's give her a minute.
Can you guys see?
Now you froze. We just heard that little bit.
Can you hear me?
Okay, keep trying. Yeah, go ahead and try to talk, Donna.
How about now?
Yes.
I can hear her
Can you
via
hear
Zoom.
me?
We can hear her.
You can? Okay. Okay, good. Sorry, I'll go fast because my internet is getting spotty now. So public meeting rules apply to PAC meetings and subcommittee meetings. Yes?
Yes.
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 All right, and they are requesting that there be a process, a simple process to follow when boards or commissions would like to request things of the council, such as subcommittees.
There is a process.
And we don't really have a formal process.
Well, the process says they need to ask the staff because it's staff time. And then they need to take it to you, the liaison, and the liaison brings it back to the council, and council gives consensus one way or the other. I believe that that's what I got out
Yes,
of the
but they-
recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, it's all pretty clear to me. I don't understand the lack of confusion. Or the confusion.
I think that what they're asking for is specifically what information does the council need to make that decision?
If it matches with
Just
the
saying
goal
we
and
want to
objective.
do this isn't enough.
I think for me, it's
okay.
If the subcommittee meets one of our goals and objectives, and then also the time it takes staff, because we have to be really conscientious that because of public meeting laws, that any time a subcommittee meets, then that's additional staff time. So for me, those are my two big things: is how is it connected to a goal and objective, and what's the capacity of our staff to be there, and how long is it going to last?
And so what's the scope? What's the very purpose of the subcommittee? How many meetings are they anticipating, so which defines how much staff time would be required? Is this a subcommittee that's going to meet for 10 months or 2 months? That makes a big difference of whether or not I would vote for approval of it. And what's their specific purpose? What are the outcomes that they're looking for? If it's a subcommittee that's going to deal with something year after year after year after the same thing, then that's not what I think we're looking for.
So, Councilor Rippey, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I am looking for that list that you just spun out. Do we have a formal form that is easy for our boards and commissions to use instead of just everything by mouth? I think it would be much easier if we have, here's your things that we need to know. Hand it in with your council liaison. That's the request. And that's all
I don't have a problem with that. I will tell you that I do not have a problem with that. I think that it behooves us as leadership to provide as much direction and guidance. And while it's wonderful to talk about these things in a council meeting, I think a short, form for every subcommittee to have to fill out and have answered by the staff, including, like you said, the length of the subcommittee. All of those things can get lost in the weeds. So I see no problem whatsoever in supporting our boards and commissions with a short form that they can complete and know that they've done their due diligence for the council. That's just my input as.
Yeah, Jesse's giving us a head nod that we can get that done, so, sounds good. Do you have, we keep cutting you off, Counselor Gufson, and I know you have, your internet's like probably frustrating anyway, but do you have more to report on?
Nope, that's it. I'm good, thanks.
Cool, thank you. I will go back to Council President Rippey.
Thank you. So the TV Highway Steering Committee met in separate groups a couple weeks ago, and so the session that I attended, and they were meeting in smaller groups to have more intimate, if you will, discussion around two proposed general concepts for the funding of the TV highway project, the corridors along a project. The first is, and they refer to them as CIG versus non-CIG. CIG stands for Capital Improvement Grants, which are generally federal level grants. So there's one approach. The general concept was to look at getting federal funding for this whole project. They were looking at approximately $550 million for the whole TV highway corridor, which was probably a bit too much for them to be able to secure at the federal level. So the other concept they're looking at is referred to as the non-CIG or state and local funding. And then to do that, they were looking at prioritizing what projects would be included in that. And they reduced the price tag approximately to $350 million versus $550 million. So they were looking for feedback on that. And some of the projects that would not be funded, let me put it this way. The projects with the non-CIG or the state local funding would focus almost exclusively on safety issues, safety for pedestrians, safety at the and the station facility, shelters at the station, crossings, and those kinds of things. But the larger, more expensive aspects of building pull-out lanes for buses, those would not be included. So they were focusing on safety, not focusing on rapid transit. Okay, that's where we are. That was the discussion. That was the feedback. I missed the EDC meeting because we were at the NLC conference. Today, the chamber board met, and I missed that due to a medical appointment. The Fire Services Task Force meets Wednesday night, so I'll have more information for you the next meeting with regard to where we're heading on that thing. So I think that's it.
Thank you. Okay, next up, I have Councilor Marshall.
I have nothing to report. Both my meetings are Wednesday week.
Get them done in one day.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Councilor Martinez.
So with the Forest Grove Rural Fire Protection District Board, there were a number of repairs that were done at the Gales Creek Fire Station. Rain gutter repairs, window replacement, siding repair, new paint. They did quite a bit there. And then the fire department awards banquet is planned for April 26th. And then Forest Grove Fire and Rescue, they're working on a project to more efficiently utilize the volunteers. The plan would be to add a non-transport ambulance as a response resource, which would be staffed by volunteer firefighters. Generally speaking, in Forest Grove, volunteers ride on the fire engine in addition to career staff. The fire department can gain efficiencies by adding an additional deployable resource staffed by volunteers. The response unit will most likely be deployed at peak times during the day. They have a meeting scheduled March 12th to present the program to all the volunteers, and then they will sign up for open spots.
Thank you. Counselor Ewing.
Thanks. So I think you've got a pretty good overview of the senior center meetings or meeting that I attended, so I don't want to spend time on that. I do want to go forward and talk about CCE. They elected their new chair, Heather Finnegan, and their vice chair is David Anderson, and then Tom Cook is going to continue with duties as the secretary. We talked a lot about the ATM, and one of the questions that came forward so that we provide more equity and inclusion in the ATM is the ability to have an interpreter. So I don't know, I'm going to push this out to Jesse. Jesse, is that something they have to make a formal request on, or how can I report back to them on having an interpreter?
So I'm going to look over at Paul. I believe we have hired an interpreter in the past during the annual town meeting. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's been a while, but we have hired an interpreter for the annual town meeting in the past, and that meeting was it was a single. We didn't have breakout groups. I mean, it all depends on the format and how many, and for how we would provide interpreter services for an annual town meeting. What's their format going to be, and how are they going to do the meeting? So
it's going to be an open house, Paul. So they will have booths. And my understanding is if somebody has a question, that interpreter would work with them at the booth of their request. So I see it not as just, sitting there and interpreting on a headset. I see it really more as an active type of interpretation. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. I mean, multiple booths. We probably still only need one interpreter. I was trying to figure out, depending on the format, would we need multiple or not? But probably one interpreter would probably work even for that format.
I think that's really kind of what their idea is to have just one interpreter. And then also, will we need support in getting materials out in Spanish as well as English? Is that a request we need to make?
No, if CCE develops material for the annual town meeting, we will have it translated into Spanish as part of what we do.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Also, they're waiting for our goals and objectives so that they can really finalize what they want to do going forward, especially with the ATM. I've also asked that Stephanie perhaps provide an engagement 101, which she is willing to do, because this team is good. But I think that one thing that really came up during our goal and objective sessions with our contractor was that people view and understand community engagement different. There are experts that prepare people, and since this is going to be a large part of their role, I wanted them to have something like a engagement 101 so that everybody's on the same page as we go forward and begin the process of engaging with more of our community. Also, they would like to do more cross-pollinating. That's their term. I think it's a good term. Cross-pollinating with other boards and commissions. One of their things that really became evident to them was they really don't know what other boards and commissions are doing or really understand what their focus and goals are. And they really want to work more collaborative in being able to get that message out in the community. So how we're going to go about that, I'm not quite sure, but there is an interest, and I'm hoping that we can put something together so that it can be used by other boards and commissions as we begin doing more partnerships. Also, well, I think that'll do it. I think that's good for now. Thanks a lot.
Councilor Ewing, do they have a date for the ATM yet?
No, we have not set a date at this time. We're going to really begin finalizing that more at this month's meeting or the one coming up so that we can provide that. Also, the Senior Center has quite a few dates for different activities, but it's a little bit more out in the future. So I'll give a shout out as those become more concrete.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Councilor Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Policy Advisory Board canceled their March meeting. So I don't have any news to you from that. And I believe there should be a Library Commission meeting coming up soon, but I have nothing in my calendar yet. However, I do want to share with you, Saturday was a great day. It was a lovely weather, but also a great day because the staff from the Oregon Department of Forestry and Centro Cultural's Climate Justice Leadership Youth Program, KIDS, we visited 18 properties around Maple and 13th Avenue to speak to the property owners and make sure that they understand and that they know that there is funding available that will cover the cost for tree removal. The trees that have been infested with the emerald ash borer are beyond repair. It looked very sad to see all those, all those trees, all those dead trees. So our task was to make sure that the property owners were aware of this. And as I said, there will be no cost to the removal of the tree, and that will happen in April, but they need a permit from the city. So that's the part that they need to get done. So I hope people are watching us and, this information can be put to good use. And then in the fall, they will get a new tree of their choice. They have some, a list of trees to choose from. And I think that's really, really cool. And that will happen in the fall. That's when you plant trees. So, of course, I'm very proud of the kids from Climate Justice and very grateful to the Oregon Department of Forestry for helping us with this.
Thank you. Did you have a date for the library's gathering of the groups?
I do not.
Okay. If there's at your commissions, if there's a date, that just send an email out, so that we can get it on our calendars and show up. Okay. I think it's really important to the community, to our commissions, that they see us showing up at these events. So I just want to.
Well, along that vein, the Chambers Gala is Saturday, and all the members of council have been invited.
This coming Saturday?
No,
Saturday.
It's the 23rd, 5:30 to 8:30 at the Walter Cultural Center in Hillsborough.
Okay.
I think, yeah. But we can come back to that. City manager report, please.
Sure, just a couple items. We are just starting our internal budget meeting, so it's going to be very busy around City Hall for the next few weeks, and that's somewhat in preparation for the April 2nd informational budget meeting. That's Tuesday, April 2nd. Also coming up this Wednesday, there's a Charter Commission listening session. That's at 6 o'clock here in the community auditorium. We're also conducting boards and commissions recruitment. It's posted on the website. We've done some social media stuff about it as well. We are looking for applications by April 30th. The 4 boards and commissions that we're recruiting for that have vacancies are CCE, Community Forestry Commission, Economic Development Commission, and the Historic Landmarks Board. So all the information is on the website. If there's anybody in the public that would like to apply, please do so by April 30th. A couple other things. The 2040 plan is out and advertised. We've received quite a few proposals thus far, so it's being well received. We're encouraged by what we've seen thus far. Also, Site B for the Urban Renewal Agency is being advertised as well. We did have a pre-proposal conference. There's not much more I can share except when the proposal process is closed, we'll take what we got, see if we got any proposals, and we'll have a work session with the board to review what we received about Site B. Just briefly, we did put out a preference for a boutique hotel and a downtown grocery store. So that's what we're advertising, that's what we're marketing, and we'll see what we get.
Awesome. Exciting. Oh, are you done with your report?
Thank you, Mayor.
It's my turn. Thank you. So Dr. Jenny Coyle and myself and the city manager and then some of her administrators, we meet monthly, and just I want to give a couple updates for Pacific. Their Native American Union youth group is working on trying to build a longhouse event space. And so right now they're just really in the funding stage of, even the architecture design is costing a lot. Also, if you guys want to pull, I have lots of dates for you to add to your calendars. That's why I was asking dates. But the Pacific Luau is April 13th. It's always good to show up and support Pacific because Pacific supports us. We are inviting Pacific University to our joint work session this year. For those who have been in the past to our joint work sessions, it was typically the City of Cornelius, Forest Grove School District, City of Forest Grove. We're including Pacific this year. And, Jesse met with staff from these organizations, and we decided that the topic, like in the past, there's been an intersection with recreation. Like those are just like the natural nexus of where we all intersect in the community. So we're actually using SSW consultants who we use for our council goals and objectives to facilitate that work session. So that's pretty exciting.
When is that?
That work session is going to be in April. I think it might be April 8th. Is it April 8th? Geez, I am sometimes I'm on it. So it's April 8th. So that's our next meeting. So that's coming up on our next meeting. I do want to give you a heads up. I was going to address this at the last meeting, but I didn't give mayor comments. I co-authored an op-ed piece about the partnership between SHS, City of Forest Grove, and then co-authored with the mayor of Beaverton. Just really, Elena says this all the time, and I agree, like celebrating our successes and how SHS, like how we've partnered and worked together. And we highlighted the encampment on 47 as being a success story. One of the reasons behind that op-ed is because it has been communicated to me that Metro wants to use funding from SHS for affordable housing. And we want to say like, hey, this is working in Washington County, and these are examples of projects that are working. I don't know really what's going to happen with that Metro conversation, but just as a 411, I've heard that there is a conversation about that. Some other dates while you have your calendars out. This Thursday, County Commission Chair Harrington is having a town hall meeting in the Public Service Building in Hillsboro, Oregon. It's the 21st from 6 to 7 in room 120. So if you want to go to the county town hall, that's a great opportunity. The Forest Grove and Cornelius Chamber Gala is Saturday the 23rd, also in Hillsboro. The Oregon Heritage Conference will be here in Forest Grove on April 18th through April 20th. The State of the City for Forest Grove and Cornelius will be located here in this room on the 22nd of April at noon. So it's Monday at noon on the 22nd. The Habitat for Humanity fundraiser is Saturday night, April 27th at the Senior Center. So those are my dates. And now I get to say how awesome our staff is. We have the best staff, for real, the best staff. And so there's some other celebrations we had to have. Last June, staff put together like bids for some really good projects, and we received federal funding, and some of them just got voted on in the last week. So we received some congressional allocations for a COPS grant for our East Forest Grove TV Highway Safety Improvement Plan, which would be Quince to U Street. And then Community Solar, which will assist our CAPE assistance program in light and power. I believe that's $2.3 million for 2023.
Yes.
And it's all possible because our staff kicks butt. Not super professional, but like me saying kicks butt. But I mean, it's so easy to sell those projects. They're ready, they're succinct, it's so good. So I just want to say, like, let's go. So exciting. So anyways, when we were in DC, we went and thanked our congressional delegation. We invited the senators to the ribbon cutting for the community solar. Sorry, Chief, I don't know what we do with a cop, like ribbon cutting, but we said thank you. It's very important. And then we also asked for funding. So the deal with the East Forest Grove TV Highway Safety Plan was initially Congresswoman Bonamici was going to award us the $3 million we asked for, but there's some like wheeling and dealing with depending on which partisan is like in control of the House. So she only got $850,000. So we revisited that request, saying that we need more to do all the things we need to do. And then we also asked for funding for 21st Avenue Festival Street. And then our loop trail, our master plan loop trail. So all in all, I thought it was a successful trip to DC and just wanted to say thanks. Thank you, staff. Okay. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. We do have a work session right after this, though. Do you guys want to take a 5-minute break or just roll into the work session? Let's roll into it because it's a really short work session. Brenda's going to keep it to like 10 minutes. I mean, I'm going to try, Brenda. Okay. Are we good to go, staff? Okay. So I'm going to start this work session of the Forest Grove City Council at 8:34. The topic of this work session is city manager performance evaluation process. In attendance are the 7 members of the Forest Grove City Council, city staff, a couple audience members, and giving the report or starting the discussion is our Human Resources Director, Brenda Camilli. Okay, take it away.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can't tell. I can't see. There we go. Can my Zoom people hear? Yes. Yep.
I see thumbs up. Okay, cool. Okay, well, it's that time of year again to kick off our city manager's evaluation process. And so the purpose of this work session this evening is twofold. One is for the council to review and make any comments on the evaluation criteria, which I've included in your packet. That was the forms that we revised last year. We'll talk about those in a minute. And also to provide a timeline for the process for the council review. So if you remember, the city manager's employment agreement states that the city council shall evaluate the city manager's performance at least once a year and establish criteria for evaluation in accordance with the state's open meetings law. So it says at least once a year, so you could do it as many times as you can.
Okay, let's move on.
Upon conclusion of the evaluation, the council may make an adjustment to the annual base salary as established in Section 5 of the employment agreement. So just a couple of reminders. The evaluation criteria and policy directives must be adopted in a meeting open to the public, in which the public has an opportunity to comment, and that is the purpose of this work session this evening. Council may hold an executive session to review and evaluate the performance of the city manager. However, the council may not discuss job performance or pay, in an executive session. Council may not use an executive session to conduct a general evaluation of goals, objectives, operations, or programs. It has to be limited to the city manager's performance. City manager may request an open hearing for the performance evaluation with advance notice. So there's 2 purposes for the city manager evaluation. One is to evaluate the city manager's performance, of course, and the other is to act as a communication bridge for the mayor and councilors and the city manager. So as I mentioned, last year we went through a process of reviewing the forms that we were using for the council to make comments about the city manager's performance, as well as the self-evaluation form. And that is included in your packet. And I guess I'd be curious if anyone has any comments about how that document worked for you last year, and if you had any comments about the self-evaluation form itself.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none.
Okay, so the second part of if you look at the staff memo, it'll be a little easier to follow. So we have the work session happening right now today. That's number one. The second part of the process that we have proposed in order to get this hopefully completed before July 1st, managers' pay will be actually on time for any pay increases that the council decides. The second part of the process is next council meeting on April the 8th. The council will vote on any amendments to the criteria of the evaluation, so the forms, or how you're going to evaluate city manager's performance, and adopt that by resolution at the next meeting, April 8th. The following weeks, then, once we have the form adopted and everybody is good to go, you'll be completing your comments on this form and sending it to the city attorney, just like you did last year, by April 26th. At the same time, staff, the department directors will also be sending comments to the city attorney, as well as Jesse will be doing his self-evaluation, and all of that will be turned in to the city attorney confidentially by April 26th, and I underlined that in here to make sure that everyone saw that. So at that point, the city attorney will compile all the comments and scores into one document and distribute it to the council for review in an executive session to be held on May 13th. And there will be no names included. This will just be a compilation of all of the comments. So that is number 4. That would be our first executive session on May 13th, where the council will meet in executive session to discuss how the city manager has performed under the criteria and to review the first draft of the written evaluation provided by the city attorney. Council may discuss whether any changes to the written evaluation are necessary or warranted. And the city attorney will draft the final evaluation provided to the city manager for review. So that brings us to the second executive session, May 28th, where the council and city manager meet in executive session together to go over the performance evaluation. Then in the council meeting on that same night, the city council will discuss any merit increase in open session, because again, you can't talk about salary in executive session. And the city council will approve by resolution in open session the city manager's evaluation and compensation effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Any questions about the timeline and comments?
I do, Brenda. So last year, I think one of the things I stumbled a bit with was that we had always had our city manager's self-evaluation in hand prior to each counselor doing their own review. That really helps me a lot because there's a lot that happens in the year, and it really helps me to have Jesse's voice as I'm working through the evaluation process. Is that something that we can do this year, or is that something that I can only hope for?
No, you can answer, and then I have a different question.
Yes, that absolutely can happen. It does maybe prolong the process a little bit, or it makes Jesse expedite his self-evaluation. The other thing to keep in mind is that you'll be making your comments initially, but there's another opportunity for you once you've looked at everyone's comments and Jesse's evaluation to make any changes to the evaluation or your comments, and you can do that confidentially before the city attorney finalizes it. So I guess I would want the wish of the council on how you wanted to do that, because we could do it either way. We could try and have Jesse, I'd have to look at the timeline again, to submit his self-evaluation earlier, so the council would have it. I would like to keep this timeline if we can, though, to make sure that we get the evaluation done and the salary ready to go.
So
I would prefer, as I said, I would prefer to have his in hand as I'm working through my process, but I'm going to leave it to the council.
Is there any reason that would preclude you from being able to provide the self-evaluation earlier? Yeah, I was looking for the timeline.
Right
too.
now, it's due April 26th. And
So-
Oh, on my
it would have to
birthday.
be, ours is due April 26th, so.
Suppose Jesse could start working on it now in anticipation that you're not going to change the form.
Budget. My concern, and something we should maybe address for next year, like, one thing I would like to propose is maybe we do this evaluation during this February-March period, because one of the things that's always been a little bit angsty for me is his evaluation. There's all these deadlines. It's budget session. We're a full-service city. There's all these things going on, and then we have a hard time with our budget. We have a hard time with his evaluation, and so whatever Jesse's cool with doing, I support. But I would encourage us to do this process earlier in the year, maybe following our goals and objectives adoption. Like, it's some things are fresh, what we've achieved, what we haven't. I think that would be a better place marker where we're not in this.
I'd support that, but that's convenient for us. My concern is if Jesse's initiating the budget process.
I know.
So when's the heavier workload for you? February, March, or April? Right, so would you rather get your self-evaluation done prior to the internal budget process? Or
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in terms of workload, it would be better than during the internal and also external budget process. It just gets really busy. This is sooner than last year. Last year was actually, so it kind of disentangled it a little bit, but not all the way. So, but it's, I hope that answers your question.
So if Jesse could have we only have one council meeting in March. If he could have his self-evaluation done by that meeting, is that early enough for everybody?
I think in February. I think we do
I mean, next year?
for next year.
For next year?
Yeah. I think the process starts the first meeting in February. Like, he should have it done by February, and we can probably have it done because right now, my understanding is right now, like, they're having their internal budget, right? It's like March and April is like when internally. So to me, February is the
Right, but
the hot spot.
after, for me, it needs to be after our goals and setting session.
Well, typically we do our goals in January. We got pushed off late this year. So if we stick with
So
schedule.
I think we could probably do approving the application form in January, the evaluation itself in February. It would be post-retreat, and then it could disentangle from there.
That's
So,
fine.
Okay.
Okay, but for this time period, Jesse, can you get your self-evaluation to us before April 26th?
Yeah, I can do that.
You know, I have something to say about that. We're always concerned about the staff and their time and how hard they work. I think we want Jesse to have sufficient time to reflect on this evaluation. This is not something, that he should have just a little time for. I think I would ask that we continue with this timeline that we have right here. So Jesse has enough time to do what he needs to do. And I understand how valuable it is to have that information, Elena, I really do, and it would be great, but then we will have the opportunity to add comments after we read his evaluation. So I think we are okay, to do our part, but I think we should give Jesse the time he needs and that he probably has organized in his mind already how this is going to roll. So those are my 2 cents.
I guess my reaction to that is that if I were the city manager, if I were Jesse's seat, most of that self-reflection, most of my evaluation would come as a result of what the departments have accomplished. And we know, I would know that through the goals and objectives process, so that post-retreat, after we've done that process, then and I'm not speaking for you, I'm speaking for myself, I would be set to be able to do my self-evaluation because that information has been communicated to the staff as well as to the council. So, you know, that's my thought process. I hear what you're saying. Your message is give him enough time to reflect. So let's hear what Jesse has to say.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to answer this question. I got two I'm not picking counselors.
I think a lot of the information is kind of already out there per se. My thought is I'll start working on it and I'll just start to be diligent about it. And I think I am in a little bit of a fortunate position in that I've done these before, and so it probably wouldn't take me as long as it did maybe the first couple. So I do think by April 26th, I think I can do that with and try and get it done by then. So
Can you get it done earlier next year?
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, with enough lead time and so forth, yeah. Mm-hmm. So as far as I thought Councilor Valenzuela was talking about this year's timeline.
I think so.
So
Were you?
okay.
She was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
I
what.
was talking about next year.
I think I knew you guys were talking about two different things, but okay, go ahead, Brenda.
So all of the documents will be due to the city attorney, including the council comments, by April 26th. So I was going to throw this out here. On April 8th, we tried, the council meetings are spread apart. So there's a little bit of a longer period of time between April 8th and whenever you turn into attorney. Jesse, do you think you could have yours done by April 19th? So if this is adopted, the council adopts by resolution the evaluation on April 8th. If the city manager were to get the evaluation by the 19th, could you still get all of your comments to the city attorney by the 26th?
I could, because
For me, yes.
yes.
You could start on it meanwhile.
Well, yeah.
and then Jesse can start on it any time, I guess, because if that will work, then we will have one more deadline in there, which Jesse will try and have his evaluation to you all to the city attorney to send to you all.
Sure.
Around the 19th.
Yeah, that gives me a little over a month. So day over a month.
So I guess the missing element here was, what about the department heads? Are they going to be able to meet that time?
Well, theirs just says the 26th. We're not changing theirs.
We're not changing theirs?
No, Councilor Ewing wanted to see Jesse's self-reflection before, while she was working on hers. So that's my understanding. That's the only one we're
Department
changing.
directors would be submitting their comments to the city attorney by April 26th. Same city mayor. Or by the 26th. So earlier is also appreciated on her. So then she has time to compile all that information for the May 13th executive.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you doing that. Thanks, guys.
Okay, do you need anything else from us, Ms. Camilli?
No, so just the next thing on the calendar then would be on the 8th. If you have any comments that you think of between now and then, let me know. But we're going to be adopting these two forms on the 8th by resolution, the two evaluation forms. And after that, you'll be ready to just start completing it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for coming back and having the late shift. Okay, with that, this work session is adjourned. You're fine. Don't say sorry. I agree.
Just kind of.
No.